Call the Broken Arrow City Council meeting to order. We have invocation by Pastor Katrina. So, oh, there she is. I was like, I know she's here.
Would you pray with me, please? Oh God, we come before you with gratitude. We thank you for being a God of love who is with us in this very room. Thank you for your promises to never leave or forsake us. Thank you for your grace that allows our humanity to come to you again and again, even though we fail. We thank you for making each of us in this room, every person we meet, every citizen of Broken Arrow, in your image, with dignity and infinite worth. We thank you for the calling that you have given to each of us to be good stewards of your creation, to love our neighbors as ourselves. I thank you tonight, God, for these your servants, our mayor, our city manager, our city staff, and our council members. I give thanks for the way of service they have chosen to take on behalf of all of us in Broken Arrow. We all come into this room tonight as complex human beings, carrying burdens, carrying joy and hope, trusting that you alone can hold us together, O God, in your love and peace. Help us to trust you more than our fears and our wounds, and even our accomplishments. Help us to learn again that we need to lean on you, your strength and power in our work here tonight. God, in your word, you make it clear for your expectations for those who sit in places of authority. In Psalm 72, we hear a prayer for the king. Endow the king with your justice, O God, the royal son with your righteousness. May he judge your people in righteousness, your afflicted ones with justice. May he defend the afflicted among the people and save the children of the needy. May he crush the oppressor. For the king will deliver the needy who cry out, and the afflicted who have no one to help. He will take pity on the weak and the needy and save the needy from death. He will rescue them from opposition and violence, for precious is their blood in his sight. And through the prophet Jeremiah in chapter 22, you remind us that your blessing came on kings who defended the rights of the poor and the needy, because isn't that what it means to know me, declares the Lord? I'm also reminded of the Apostle Paul writing to the believers in Rome and his teaching that those in authority are first and foremost your servants. We know that honoring you and doing your will is their highest purpose, that any portion of the power they enjoy is given to you, given by you, and can be taken away. Help us to be humble and follow your guidance in our lives. I pray that you would be glorified tonight through the decisions made from the City Council. I pray that all of us could have eyes to see how our lives are innerly connected. We know that our common good is upheld when we listen and we respond to those most vulnerable among us. We pray that your kingdom would come in Broken Arrow as it is in heaven through your power working through each of these your servants. May your truth be revealed. May your light shine brighter. May the voices of those most silenced be heard loud and clear. Defend their cause, O God, through this governing body tonight, for they represent in all their positions all of the cities of Broken Arrow, citizens of the city of Broken Arrow. I pray for wisdom, for strength and courage to do what is right for all citizens. May the City Council put the interests of others above their own. Help all of us to act out of love for the common good. Help us to be good neighbors, recognizing your image in every person in the city. We thank you again for this council, our mayor, our city staff, our first responders, and all those who work to make Broken Arrow a place that we call home, such a wonderful city. And I pray all of this in the name of the Creator, the Redeemer, and the Sustainer. Amen.
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 Thank you, ma'am. Roll call.
Sorry. Green.
Here.
Ford.
Here.
Parks.
Here.
Gillespie.
Here.
Wimpy.
Here. Please stand and join Councilor Green for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Attention, salute, pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir. Are there any items from the consent agenda to be removed?
Move to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Green.
Yes.
Ford,
Yes.
Parks,
Yes.
Gillespie,
Yes.
Wimpy.
Yes. Item 7 is public hearings, appeals, presentation, recognitions, and awards. 7A, presentation, discussion, and appointment of and swearing in of the youth city council members for the school year 24-25. Lori Hill.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council. It's crazy to think that gosh, my glasses are fogging over. Sorry. 2024 marks the 23rd year of the Youth City Council, which was established in 2001 by our former mayor, Wade McCaleb. This year, our co-sponsors for the Youth City Council program are Councilors Johnny Parks and Councilors Justin Green. And one of the things I've really tried to do this year is put a little bit more of the leadership opportunities in front of our students. So this evening, instead of me doing this, I'm going to invite our mayor, Youth City Councilor Sloan Beasy, and our Vice Mayor, Ananya Sundaram. So come on up. It's all yours.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, City Council, and other city staff members. My name is Sloan Beasy, and I have the honor of serving as our Youth City Council Mayor.
My name is Ananya Sundaram, and I am Vice Mayor of Youth City Council.
And we're here to explain kind of what Youth City Council is. So one of the main questions we get asked when talking about Youth City Council is, why do we even have a Youth City Council? And young people must be invested in with the knowledge and skills of the next generation because they are our next local leaders. And it's really important that they know to promote regular and active civic engagement throughout the rest of their lives.
Another common question we get is, how do youth councils promote civic engagement? Youth City Councils around the nation offer students real-world experiences with elected officials. They teach them about councils, help students develop leadership and public speaking skills, increase communication between youth and adults as well as among youth, and most importantly, increase youth volunteerism.
And lastly, how can students benefit from Youth City Council? Youth City Council ensures that students' voices are heard throughout local government. It instills a value of public service. And lastly, it looks great on college applications and scholarship applications.
2024 marks the 23rd year of the City of Broken Arrow Youth City Council, which was established in June of 2001 by former Mayor Wade McCaleb. The Youth City Council represents an effort to link the leaders of today with the leaders of tomorrow.
Our amazing counselors, Johnny Parks and Justin Green, serve as our sponsors for the Youth City Council program for this upcoming school year. This year we are welcoming 8 wonderful sophomores into our program. These sophomores will serve a 3-year term from sophomore to junior to senior year. And the Youth City Counselors recommended for appointment during the 2024-2025 school year are as follows. Graham Bowser from Broken Arrow High School.
Breeze Campbell from Classical Conversations.
Brooklyn Azell from Broken Arrow High School.
Lucas Martin from Broken Arrow High School.
Ayet Nair from Broken Arrow High School.
Raghav Rajaparamal from Union.
Tiffany Shanks from Vanguard Academy.
And Nithalan Sundaram from Booker T.
Hi there. My name's Trevor Dennis. I'm the city attorney for the city of Broken Arrow. Congratulations on your appointments. We're going to administer the oath of office for you right now. So just have everybody raise their right hand and then repeat after me. So I'll go slow. There's a lot of words. So I state your name. Do solemnly swear that I will support, obey, and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Oklahoma. That I will not knowingly receive directly or indirectly any money or other valuable thing for the performance or non-performance of any act or duty pertaining to my office other than the compensation allowed by law. I further swear that I will faithfully discharge the duties as a member of the Broken Arrow Youth City Council for the city of Broken Arrow to the best of my ability. Congratulations.
Hey, guys.
Yeah, stay on here. We're going to take a picture with you guys.
Sorry, Sloan, I'm gonna do it sideways. It's how old people take them.
This isn't your Facebook crowd.
Looks like a good group of young adults.
Turn some away.
I don't know if you guys saw the Tulsa World front page, but the Campbell's family was on the front page from the rafting thing.
Yes, I did see
I
that.
did not. And all
Yes.
of their kiddos so far have been going through our youth city council, which is pretty cool.
That's fun.
All right, item 8 is citizens' opportunity to address the council, and there is none. Item 9, general council business. 9A, consideration, discussion, and possible approval of an amendment to the Broken Arrow Historical Society User Group Amendment. Mr. Spurgeon.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council, good evening. Great to see everyone. I'm going to start things off tonight under Section 9. As the mayor mentioned, it was brought to my attention recently that the Broken Arrow Historical Society's Museum Broken Arrow recently changed their meeting days and times, which, as you know, Councilman Park serves as the city council representative on the board. This change has created some challenges for the council members, just as it would any of the council members if there was to be a change in who would be attending that board. So Mr. Parks and I had a cup of coffee with Dr. Gerber last week to talk about many things regarding the museum, which was a great conversation about what's happening, as well as their efforts on the bond package, and for example. And the topic of attendance came up, and I'm going to let Councilor Parks talk a little bit about, because he's on the board here, but I wanted to present a possible alternative, but also have a discussion with council about, because I do think that we need to have a representative from the city there in a voting capacity. So, Councilor Parks.
There was never any contention on their part about me missing quite a few meetings. They were very nice. The problem really come in from my part is I feel like that I've always been for our counselor being with on our nonprofits to help guide that. We spend a lot of money, not only on the buildings, but utilities and everything. And me not being there, not having a counselor there, our representative there, was missing something, I felt like, and we needed to have them there. What happened was they went from a 3 o'clock or 3:30 meeting on that second Tuesday of the month to 5:30 meeting on the second Tuesday of the month. And you say, well, second Tuesday is not a council meeting anymore, and especially this bond issue coming up. Tuesday evenings sometimes are a work session, and I have to take a priority and go to the work session. So Mr. Gerber, Dr. Gerber, was trying to work something out, said, we still want you on the board, but I just feel like that we need to make sure that we're represented with this seat. And so the city manager came up with the idea that I guess that we need to present to them, and if something like that doesn't happen, I don't know what's going to go, because it wouldn't matter whether it was me or one of you you still need to go, take your priority and go to your council meeting. So, Michael, why don't you explain what idea that you come up with?
Sure, because it's in the user group agreement that we have with them, any change would have to be approved. And what I'm asking for you to consider is an amendment which is simply states that should, in this case, Councilman Parks not be able to attend, that he could designate someone in his place to actually represent the city, because obviously that's a voting position. I suggested Brent Brassfield because he is so heavily involved in the Rose District. He interacts with them periodically. It's part of our TED team. And I know that he would do a really good job because he's got experience working on boards previously. But really, there's no designate. It's up to Councilman Parks. If he can't make it, then he could choose whoever he wanted to. And obviously, I don't believe he would do that without the support of the council. And I suggested someone from the senior leadership team, and then I got to thinking most of the directors, if we're having a work session, would actually be at the work session. So I went to senior staff who have experience. And so I've spoken to his supervisor, Jennifer Rush, and I've spoken to him personally. He said he would be interested in doing so, and I think he'd do a good job representing him. But it wouldn't be named in the agreement. It would be whoever. If, for example, if Councilmember Ford became the person and she couldn't make it, then she could designate. I'm sure we'd be having the same conversation about who it is she's going to designate if she couldn't make it. I think it's important, since they moved the meeting, is we're probably going to have at least one work session a quarter. So there is going to be the potential conflict going forward. Maybe there could be a quarter we don't, but I do anticipate at least for the next 2 to 3 quarters we will. And as the bond package for 2025, I fully anticipate there's going to be a lot of additional meetings as we prepare for April of 2026.
You know, the 6 years on served on the senior board, there never was a conflict. Even if I had a council meeting on that day, and that happens, you know, we might have to leave maybe 10 minutes early, but we were there for most of the activities. So I just feel like that councilman or that representative, and this is no different than what we do for NCOG. We have an alternate for NCOG if one of the two can't make it. So I thought it was a good idea, and whoever, and I will let them know when we meet, and they need to vote on it also, is that it would be the same person, so they would know who it was going to be, and certainly his recommendation I'm in agreement with, but I wouldn't skip from one person, or we wouldn't skip from one person to the other, but for the continuity.
Yes.
But just for me to continue on there, I need to have somebody to make up where I'm missing that meeting because of the city council.
And Dr. Gerber actually mentioned multiple times he wants Councilman Parks to stay on there. Johnny's a contributor. There's a lot going on. He's got the history, no pun intended, obviously, but he understands what's happening and provides on behalf of the council a lot of really good input. So, as I know all of you would, but that's what I thought would come up with suggestion. In this case, a senior staff member to serve when he's not able to be there.
Okay.
So the meetings, are they going to be on city council night or just when we have the works? Because I guess in my mind I thought it
They'll
was
be
going to
on Tuesday. They're on the second Tuesday of the month.
Okay.
At
So it's
5:30. Actually, the time is more concerning than the evening because, as you know, you guys meet on the day of the city council meeting.
Right.
So when they moved it to 5:30, then that threw me out of being able to do that. So somebody's special meeting, just obviously he chooses and I agree with him, the second Tuesday of the month, because that's kind of opening. And we've got this big bond issue coming up in a couple of years. So I foresee quite a few meetings for that, so.
Well, I still feel like you'll be able to attend a lot of the meetings, and then if you're not there, this is just approving someone to stand in.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct. I won't go fishing. I'll go fishing, but another evening. But anyway, no, that's just when we have something in the city, a conflict, and I can't make it. And actually, it could fall over if we make it, that put it on their contract, then we could look at it in case you all, maybe we're gone sometime, or I know you have meetings, OML or whatever, and not able to make it, then you could do that. I think it's important to have a consistency with one person on there. So I'll visit with them. They'll meet next Tuesday. If city manager doesn't call a meeting, I'll be at that meeting at 5:30.
No.
At 5:30 next Tuesday, that they'll meet.
Okay.
All right. I think that'll work.
So we want that in a motion?
Actually, yes, because then Trevor, I believe, will need to put together the amendment, And it'll be good if they're meeting next Tuesday. If everything's good to go, then on the 17th, we'll bring that amendment to the agreement.
I'd make that motion that we accept this change amendment.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Green,
Yes.
Ford,
Yes.
Parks.
Yes?
Gillespie,
Yes.
Wimpy.
Yes. All right, item 9B, consideration, discussion, and possible approval of allowing the Oklahoma Military History Center to permanently display a 75 millimeter pack howitzer in front of the museum building.
Thank you, Mayor. Members of Council, good evening again. This gives me an opportunity, this item, is to actually, once again, just talk about how important seniors are, veterans are. Seniors are important.
Our senior veterans.
Our
Senior
veterans are
veterans,
to
especially.
Broken Arrow. And I'm excited to share this with you. And part of that is history and tradition when you're talking about the military. And I have General Mancino here to help me. In short, basically the Military History Centers received a 75 millimeter pack howitzer from the 45th Division Museum. First and foremost, the ATF has confirmed that it has been rendered unusable. That's the most important thing. Council has established an understanding that if there's going to be any improvements at the Veterans Park or basically at the History Center, those need to come before the governing body to make sure that everyone is aware of what's being placed there. And so General Mancino approached Lori Hill and myself about how do we go about this. He's provided a sketch of where it would be located. It'd be 15 feet from the brick and at least 4 feet back from the sidewalk there. He's provided a sketch of the howitzer itself, and I am in support of this recommendation, and I'm here to ask him to say a few words about the request.
Thank you very much. Good evening. And we'd like to change our meeting place to the
No,
Main
sir.
Street Tavern during happy hour. That's okay. No, the mayor's on our board and there wouldn't be any objection. Now, this 75 millimeter pack howitzer has a history. We don't know if it's the exact same one, but one just like it sat in front of the old armory in front of college and the old high school. When I took command of the Army, it was there, and I talked to Dr. Oliver, and one just like it was there also. So I don't know what happened to that when the school took it over. But the pack howitzer was designed to be broken down, used by airborne troops. We've been looking for a military piece of equipment to put in front of the museum, and this is a small enough piece of equipment that it won't overshadow the brick park or the flag plaza. And again, the ATF did call, and I assured him I wouldn't be lobbing any shells at the city council if it was, so it's non-operational. What we'll do is put it on jack stands under the wheels, and then we'll Hilti bolt it to some concrete, and we'll take care of all that if the city approves it. It'll make a nice addition to the museum.
And that was one of my questions. I wanted to know how it was going to be secured, so
Yeah,
I heard how you
normally they
I forgot
fill
about
the
that.
wheels with concrete,
Yeah.
but when we get it from the museum, we'll probably have to have it repainted, and instead of putting the wheels with concrete, we'll just put the trail or the part that comes out of the back of the howitzer, and we'll Hilti bolt it to some concrete, and then put the wheels up on jack stands so they don't go bad.
Well, I had to Google it too to see what it looked like because I didn't know what that was.
Oh,
Let's see
well,
what this looks like.
Yeah, it was designed for an airborne howitzer, basically, and it's designed, they called it a pack howitzer because you took it apart and you could actually put it on pack animals.
Nice.
I think it'd be a great identifier, for the museum. I can say that one similar to that, when they have White House arrival, a foreign president comes in from other country, they do a 21-gun salute from the ellipse, which is south of the White House, and they use 3 of these. And they pull them with deuce and a halves down, except they have chrome barrels on them. And the guy at the back deuce and a half didn't see the first guy stop, and he run that barrel through the engine of that deuce and a half. So the 21-gun salute was 2 chrome barrels and 1 green barrel, but it still sounded the same. But I think this is a great idea.
Well, the other thing is that on the 26th of September, our Hall of Honor will be inducting Councilman Parks. It's one of our representatives in the Oklahoma Military Hall of Honor. He tells a lot of stories about the time he was in the old guard. Not that he was old, but the old guard. So if there's any questions, I'd consider your approval.
I did hear you say that the cost was, you were gonna pay for the. I don't know why I
Right,
keep
you,
getting that. I'm
city
sorry.
doesn't have to,
Okay, so we have someone from the city just to make sure
Yes,
it meets our
sure.
standards and everything. I mean, not that you're not gonna meet our standards, but then that
no.
way we
We
can.
have plenty of people from the city checking the basement out all the time, so it's not a problem.
All right, any other discussion?
So what do we need? Do we just?
Just a motion
Okay.
to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
With a motion and a second, roll call?
Green,
Yes.
Ford,
Yes.
Parks.
Yes.
Gillespie,
Yes.
Wimpy.
Yes. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joel.
All right, item 9C, consideration, discussion, and possible approval of and authorization to build, or to accept the third guaranteed maximum price from Crossland Heavy Contractors for the construction of the Events Park Infrastructure Project. Charlie Bright.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members, Mr. Spurgeon. Thought it was important I get up here and talk to you guys tonight, because I guess Councilor Green missed me
Yep,
at the
we
last
missed you.
council, so.
Welcome back.
Thank you. Here to talk about the third guaranteed maximum price for the work we have going on in the events park. As you guys know, we've used a little bit different construction method for this project due to the timelines that we were trying to hit. So we hired Crossland Heavy as our construction manager at risk. We've gotten 2 guaranteed maximum prices to date. This is kind of an unusual way to even approach construction management. Normally it'd all be in one package, but due to the timeline of this project, we've been rolling stuff out as we finish the design. And so for this guaranteed maximum price, for this GMP, it is for the improvements to 101st Street. We had finished all the design of mostly everything inside the park. The consultant, after finishing that, then went and worked on 101st Street. So this particular package pertains to widening 101st Street from the entrance at Events Park to the entrances to the Turnpike. And it kind of goes with the traffic study that we did originally, with the goal of getting cars off the highway into the park and out of the park back onto the highway as quick as possible. Also in this package, there is some allowances for driveway connections to Rosewood Elementary, which staff kind of committed to when the school gave us the easements for their land. They charged us no money for that, and their ask at the time was that we do drive connections for them for compensation for their land. And so this package includes that as well. One thing I will say that is kind of cool to note, when I was putting this RFA together, I looked at September 5th of last year, we brought before this body a conceptual design, asking for approval for money for conceptual design for this. Like, we were just talking about it for the very first time. Here we are a year later and we're already under construction. So that's very impressive. But I'm recommending award of guaranteed maximum price number 3, and I'm happy to answer any questions you guys have.
Any further questions or discussion?
How many drives are going to be done for the school?
We're basically going to connect to them on both the east and the west. So we'll be doing a short drive on the east and a short drive on the west. So they'll end up having a loop all the way around the school. I think it'll give them some flexibility on their bus movements and stuff like that.
Mayor, if I can. So as you know, Charlie, we had a council member ask a question about actual construction. Can you just take just a minute or two and just talk about construction from both perspectives? Obviously,
Absolutely.
The public portion of it and also the private.
Yeah, so I believe the original intent for the developer Notes Live was that the amphitheater would open fall of 2025. I think our contract with them states improvements will be done by December 31st, 2025. I can say without a doubt, our team, our staff, we're on schedule. Our improvements will be done by the fall of 2025. Right now, today, we've done all the underground work in the main parking lots. We have not, parking lot 3, where we're going to get to the underground attention and stuff. We haven't got to that part yet. But here in the next month, you'll probably see paving starting to go out there for our parking lots. They're working on the lighting, and then after this package, they'll start working on the roads. They anticipate the road to be done by next summer in 2025. From the other perception, Crossland Commercial, which is the contractor, it's a different contractor, but the one that's working for Notes Live. If we ask them officially, they say they're on track to hit their date at the end of next year. My personal opinion and my staff's opinion is they're probably a little behind schedule. I don't think that's on any ill will on their part of delays. I think it's, and this is just a personal opinion of mine, it's not anything they're saying. I think they're still making some design changes because they just recently opened the amphitheater in Colorado Springs, and I think they've had some lessons learned. and I think they're trying to tweak some things because of that. And so I'm having trouble seeing them get to the end of next year. My best guess is spring of 2026, but
Yeah, they had their first concert and they didn't even have their restaurant open yet, their owner suite open yet, so.
that makes sense. So I've seen some movement on their side, which of course we're not involved. That's a private developer doing their thing. But from the outside looking in, it just seems like they're making some adjustments based on things they're learning other places.
Yeah, which would make sense.
And so I think they're very close to their schedule, but in my opinion, they're gonna have a hard time hitting it. So.
Any other questions?
It's good to know.
Yep.
Nope.
Well, I do want to brag on our street department because it was a very good idea of Mr. Spurgeon's to do 101st Street, like we do a mile, and then give Wagner County the other mile. But I have people from Wagner County now that don't live in our city calling me and begging for the city of Broken Arrow to take that next mile over.
Yeah, just take it.
And when I explained to them about they need to reach out to their commissioner, they're like, but you answer your phone. I don't even know who the commissioner is. I'm just telling you what they say. So good job. And they're hoping that it's half as nice as what you did. So just want to pass that along.
Well, thank you.
I did think of one question. Who is going to be doing the connection to the turnpike?
That's a great
You knew-
question.
When I did this, you knew what I was talking
Yep,
about.
that's a great question. I actually meant to hit that in my discussion, so I appreciate you asking the question. So, like I said, this isn't the normal way where we would keep having these GMPs, but we do anticipate one additional GMP, and that will be the turnpike connection. That one's lagged behind because obviously we had to have an agreement with the turnpike, which still isn't signed to this day, but both parties have agreed in principle to the term. So probably in the next month, you'll see the agreement come to council. And then as soon as that happens, I think we'll have another GMP for the connection, but it'll be our contractor, Crossland Heavy, doing
Okay.
it. And schedule-wise, they're already planning for it. It should be open by the time the venue's open as well.
Okay.
So really, the details we're trying to iron out with them are like maintenance agreements on who's gonna maintain what and all that kind of stuff.
So let me ask you, if I can, Mayor, one more question. I said, obviously, since we announced the turn to get on to go north, a lot of folks have mentioned, is there ever going to be an on-ramp off of Highway 51? And the executive director, Joey Kelly, mentioned that it was something that's being planned. I know, are they still looking at the options to do that off Highway 51?
Yeah, absolutely. Just for public's knowledge and all, you know this, obviously the city of Broken Arrow is building this connection. Any connection between the OTA and Highway 51 is a project for the state of Oklahoma. It's not the city of Broken Arrow. But Joey Kelly has spoken here, and he's also spoken to APWA luncheons, and he's mentioned it most times. The OTA's got a program going called Access Oklahoma, which I think is very similar to like our bond programs in a way. And that project is on the list for Access Oklahoma. I don't think they've assigned a timeline to it that I'm aware of, but it is on the list and something they're looking at. So.
Yeah, that was very strange to have 2 exits and no entrance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one more. Where are we on the road that's going to go across the railroad tracks? I know we were working on our part, we were working on agreement with the railroad tracks, and then going to finish that out.
Yep. So first, our streets and stormwater team and Tim Wilson's team have done an excellent job. If you haven't been out there, they're done constructing south of the railroad tracks. They've built that road all the way up to the railroad tracks and stopped. Our contractor will come tie into it where the amphitheater is. But we've been going through the permitting process with the railroad. We have gotten I think Mr. Spurgeon's mentioned it in a previous council, but we've gotten a verbal approval saying they're good with our crossing. Their consultants now working on the actual design of the crossing. We don't do that portion, they do it. And we are finalizing our design north of the railroad tracks. The north side's a little bit more complicated. There's a couple of different industrial park business owners, and I'm personally in contact with both of them as we try to work through getting land from them to get there. And then we are finishing up the design of the actual intersection itself, because ODOT's working on the intersection currently. When they're done, we'll have to come back and make some small modifications to how that works for our flow for the amphitheater. So I will say that one's dependent on the railroad and the permitting process. We are trying really, really hard to have that open by the time the first concert is. But I cannot stand up here and say that part will be open when the first concert happens. That's a discussion we had with Notes Live at the very beginning with the purpose of saying that they could go down Gary to 219th if that's not open, and they would have to have manned traffic control at an event and use the other exit. So there is a plan if it's not open. We're going to try very, very hard to have it open by the time we have a concert.
Will Rosewood Elementary traffic be able to utilize that during the day?
Absolutely. No, they're excited about it.
Yeah.
Once that new
They're
road's
not
open-
excited right now.
No, they're going through
all.
some growing pains right now of construction, but as soon as we get that new crossing and Sigline intersection, the school system's going to be very happy. The parents are going to be very happy, and I've actually heard from a lot of the employees in that industrial park that are going to be very happy. You know, it's going to make a lot of people's daily commute a lot more convenient.
I did send something in, but my granddaughter goes there, and so I get to sit in that traffic when I go to pick her up. And so I did say, I'd mention it'd be really neat if we could figure out some way to help during this, to
Yeah.
help with that congestion, because it's pretty horrific
Yeah.
right now, so.
Yeah.
So
I
it's
know.
on the record. I did ask in an open meeting.
I know Mr. Schwab and myself, and probably some of you guys, Mr. Spurgeon, have already started receiving some Facebook comments and emails about our gate closing again, unfortunately. But
Yeah.
hopefully it's only another year or so of that, and then we got a permanent access.
Yep. So, thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Welcome back.
Great.
Thanks.
Well, I guess we need to, did we approve it?
Yep, we have to approve.
No, did we?
Not
We didn't
yet.
vote. We haven't,
No.
okay.
Just questions so
I'll
far.
make a motion that we approve the GMP for Crossing Heavy Construction.
Second?
I have a motion, and a second. Roll call.
Green,
Yes.
Ford,
Yes.
Parks,
Yes.
Gillespie,
Yes.
Wimpy.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Item 9D, consideration, discussion, and possible award of the lowest responsible bid to Ascend Commercial Builders and approve and authorize execution of a construction contract for a Public Works Field Office renovation project. Shannon.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members, and City Manager. My name is Shannon Marshall. I'm Special Projects Manager with Engineering and Construction. Tonight, I'm here to discuss the award for the Public Works Field Office project, formerly known as the Windstream Building. This is behind the Streets and Storm and Jail building, off of First. Back in fall of 2022, a space needs assessment was executed by the governing body, and the report concluded a series of facility improvements were needed to help city operations. With the city manager's priority, this is one of the first of many to serve for multiple departments. The project was out to bid as a base bid with 4 alternates, and after receiving 3 bids, the city staff is recommending award for the base bid and all 4 alternates to the lowest responsible bidder, Ascend Commercial Builders. And I'm here to answer any questions.
Any questions? Nope.
I do, Mayor, because this is good information. Can you talk a little bit about who's going to be located in this building for the council, what the plan is?
Absolutely. So with this renovation project, Streets and Storm and Utilities will have their field crews use this as their home base, come in at the morning, gather as a team, and then go out, disperse throughout the city to work for the day, and then come back in the afternoons to clock out and reconvene as the team before their day is done.
All right, thank you, ma'am.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second?
We have a motion, and a second. Roll call.
Green,
Yes.
Ford,
Yes.
Parks,
Yes.
Gillespie,
Yes.
Wimpy.
Yes. Item 9E, consideration, discussion, and possible award of the lowest responsible bid to Motown Outdoors LLC, and approve the authorization, execution of a construction contract for gardens at Central Park project.
Once again, my name is Shannon Marshall, and good evening, everyone. In the 2018 General Obligation Bond, this project was considered with the unnamed fund under Proposition 3, and working along with the Parks Department and Keep Broken Arrow Beautiful organization. The gardens at Central Park were developed with extended walking trails, shade trees, and planting beds. The plants selected are a mixture of herbs, pollinators, and native species, highlighting Broken Arrow's beauty. This project was out to bid as a base bid with alternates, and with 4 responding bidders, tonight city staff is recommending awarding the base bid only to the lowest responsible bidder, Motown Outdoors. And I'm also here to answer any questions.
Question, Mayor. So obviously the engineer's estimate, the recommendations is somewhat higher than the estimate. What have you been able to analyze about that?
So the estimate was initially done a year prior in 2023, and then was updated back in June of 2024, and there was a little bit of difference there in the market with inflation and everything. And then we did have those alternates, the alternate for a pergola, a water feature, benches, and larger trees, in hopes to keep a very competitive price, but sadly those were still over our city budget. So yeah, we are looking at just the base bid, which is still beautiful with trees and planting beds, walking trails, and things like that.
Thanks, Shannon.
And I believe that Keep Broken Arrow a beautiful organization. It really has worked hand in hand with us during this time. So I was pleased to see this on. I make a motion that we approve this contract.
Second?
I have a motion and a second. Roll call?
Green,
Yes.
Ford,
Yes.
Parks,
Yes.
Gillespie,
Yes.
Wimpy.
Thank you. Yes, sorry. Item 9F, consideration, discussion, and possible action regarding BAZ 1624-2024 rezoning and PUD 1623-2024. Amanda.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council, City Manager, excuse me. I'm Amanda Yamaguchi, Planning and Development Manager. BAZ 1624-2024 along with PUD 1623-2024 is a request to change the zoning on a 10.9 acre parcel from A1 and R2 to CM, Community Mixed Use, along with the PUD. Property is located approximately a quarter mile north of Kenosha Street and a quarter mile east of Elm Place. The property is currently unplatted and undeveloped. At your last meeting, Comp 1531, a proposal to change the comprehensive plan designation from level 2 and 3 to all level 3 was approved on August 20th. This was approved subject to a PUD being approved that it was similar in context to the draft PUD that was submitted with the comp plan change. That is what's before you tonight. So this is an application to change the base zoning of the parcel to community mixed use. PUD 1623 proposes a mixed-use development with a variety of housing, including single-family detached, single-family attached, duplex, cottage court, and some commercial aspects in the form of a live-work townhome-style development. The PUD sets a maximum of 95 dwelling units, with 82 being shown on the conceptual exhibit. CM allows for all proposed uses except for duplexes and single-family detached. It has been interpreted that these are lower intensity uses than would typically be allowed in CM, so that's why they're being allowed with the PUD. Additionally, when looking at the commercial uses allowed in the live-work area, the commercial uses decrease the use allowed by right or by specific use permit in the CM district. The proposed PUD defines cottage courts and live-work categories, which are heavily influenced by the downtown residential overlay categories. PUD 1623-2024 proposes different design standards for single-family detached, single-family attached, duplex, cottage court, and live-work attached styles of homes. These design standards are laid out in your staff report. The primary access to the site is proposed to be off an extension of West Madison Street, which would pass through city-owned property currently being used as a regional detention facility. Secondary access is still being discussed with a potentially gated access onto North Circle Drive. Multiple options have been discussed for secondary fire access. These options include a potential path on the west side of the detention facility, a connection onto Ash, or a potential connection onto Oakland Place to the north. These details have not been decided, but the development will be required to provide secondary access sufficient to meet the fire code requirements. A stub street is proposed to be provided to the undeveloped property to the north. The conceptual layout has been submitted along with this application. It's still subject to change, but it's conceptual layout. This layout has public streets that give frontage to all proposed lots except the cottage court lots, which can count the internal court as frontage. All of these lots have additional access from internal alleys. A community meeting was held on Friday, August 2nd. At the Broken Arrow Library, where modifications to the conceptual PUD were discussed. Some of the items addressed in the community meeting were fencing, landscaping, and gating the southern access onto North Circle Drive. The PUD does require a 30-foot landscape buffer along the south and eastern edges, planted with 1 tree per 50 lineal feet, and in addition to a 6-foot fence. The conceptual exhibit does show a gated access on North Circle Drive. The subdivisions only allow gates to be installed on private streets, so a variance to the subdivision regulations will need to be heard for that to be approved. These cases went to the Planning Commission on September 3rd, where 11 citizens were in opposition but did not wish to speak. 10 citizens were opposed and signed up to speak. Concerns included traffic, density, pool placement, and the primary concern discussed was the placement of pickleball courts. Planning Commission recommended approval per staff recommendation with the following items being added to the PUD. Pickleball courts being moved to the interior or west of the site, not along the south or east side of the development. And this motion passed with a 3-1 vote with 1 abstention. Following the Planning Commission meeting, the applicant updated the PUD design statement to prohibit pickleball courts in the 30-foot landscape area showed on the east and south sides of the development, as well as in development area B, which is that kind of area off to the side where it extends into the residential neighborhood. Since the applicant has updated the PUD document as Planning Commission recommended, the recommendation to approve will be presented as in the design statement. I'll be happy to answer any questions. I believe the applicant is here as well.
Would you repeat again what in the final document, the Circle Drive Street, is it going to be a gated entrance for safety for our employees?
At this point, yes, it's shown in the conceptual exhibit to be gated. Staff is actually, along with the PUD, went to Planning Commission. There was a recommendation to allow a variance to the subdivision regulations to allow that to be gated. Once we have an answer from you all, approval or denial, we'll bring that back forward to you to give the final approval on gating that access. But at this point, it is proposed to be gated.
So there would not be any access to the east there along that, what we call
There would not.
pickleball court land?
Yeah, and then
No access through there, correct?
correct. So Circle Drive currently has a stub street, so that's where the proposed gate would be. Pickleball side, if required by fire access, there could be a road that goes along out to Ash. If that happens, that would also be gated. That's a big if. There's a lot of different ways to meet fire code. So.
Okay.
I think they'd like for you to stop saying pickleball courts. Yes. Okay. Any further questions or discussion?
Are we going to hear from?
Yeah.
Oh, wait.
Wait.
Oh, wait.
Okay. So we've got some citizens that would like to speak. First, we've got Jamie Weinslager. Did I say it right?
It's Mr. Weinslager was the last time.
Yes. He'll be up next.
So my name is Jamie Weinschlager. Very good. I'm at 1102 North Ash Avenue. I've been fairly quiet throughout this whole process, but the pickleball courts kind of got me because that's my front yard.
Yeah.
And my neighbor's backyard, which I will mention, he emailed you guys. I don't know who all got that. Several responded.
John Linderman.
Yes, and he did not
Yes.
make it in time due to work to speak. So I don't.
We'll cover what he sent us.
Okay,
then,
thank
sure.
you. He
Yeah.
asked me to make sure you got that. So the only thing that I'm going to really focus on is my front yard, because what happens behind that or the side of us is pointless. So they do recommend that they did say that they recommended no pickleball court in our front yard, and we're thankful for that, and we hope you'll uphold that. I'm going to ask you to take it a step further and make it to where there's no recreational area there or anything that brings people into our yard. I mean, I know that strip is not my yard. It was kind of a screwball deal from the previous, the person who owned the house before that passed. But we just don't want people right there. That's our home. That's our community. It's separate from the Venn development. I know he owns the property, but it's a different community. It's a different environment. It's an older community, and I'm scared it's going to damage what we have. And so I'm just asking that you will give consideration to that. There is still on the exhibit a, what is it called? A
like a
pavilion.
trail.
It's a pavilion.
Okay.
Sitting right there in the front that was there to watch the pickleball. It's still on the exhibit. And so I'm just going to ask that you would consider not allowing anything there that brings the public. Maybe that's a big ask, but that's my home. That's other people's backyards. There's people across the street there. We don't want it. And I don't know how much leverage there is there, but just consider it.
So what would you recommend he do with his property?
that's up to him. I've offered to buy it to try to solve the problem. I mean, we've tried to work with him. I just don't want people coming there. We'll have our dogs barking all the time. I won't be able to have my kids out in my front yard or my grandkids out in my front yard as freely as we did before. I don't know the answer to that. I know that we all agree with it.
Well, I hear you say it's up to him, but then you say, no, it's not
Well,
up
I guess
to him.
it's not
So-
fully up to him. But we're willing to buy it. We're willing to pay top dollar for
So
it.
your front yard, I just want to make it, your front yard faces south.
Yeah,
Is that
so.
correct?
So
It faces toward-
I call that little panhandle, it looks like upside down
Yeah,
Oklahoma to
it's
me.
just
That's my
weird.
house, yes, right where he's
Yeah,
got
I'm
it.
looking at it on mine.
Yeah.
So that big area, which
So
looks
weird.
huge on that, I mean, there's still a walkway there, and that just may, because wasn't taken off. But yeah, that house above is my yard. John's house is directly below that. So that's his backyard.
And John had just asked for no racket sports.
Or
That-
recreational.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the email said, I think it's the same.
And that may
thing,
be as far as
yeah.
we can go. I'm just,
I don't think he went basketball either.
I don't
Yeah.
think, there's
No.
a lot of
No,
sports.
he just, I'm using his words.
we
but
don't want
yeah,
any
I wouldn't
sports
want
there
this
for
one.
sure.
Yeah.
I mean, we just don't want, it's a quiet community. It's gonna be hard enough with all the new people moving in, but it's a quiet community. It's quiet all the time. We just would like to keep that as much as possible. That's all I'm asking.
Okay.
So, thank you.
Thank you. All right, next we have Brian Weinslider.
So glad she went before me. So, I'm
Ladies
Brian
first.
Weinslager, Brian W., most of you know me. I wrote down some stuff. I think my wife covered it. John and I are in agreement. I wish life didn't do like life does us, like Mr. Parks had asked for. You know, sometimes we can't be where we need to be. And unfortunately, John couldn't be here to speak in time before the meeting started. There's a, did you get those pictures of my driveway? Yes. So, do you see the 3 stakes and the green lines going across right there?
Yeah.
Okay, that is now owned by Nick. That driveway has been there since the owner before him owned that little chunk. The rest of it over there where you see the mailbox in the background, that is city property. Everything on the other side of that, those stakes are on exactly the property line. He told me in a conversation on July 3rd that I would no longer have access to my driveway on the south end. Can you switch to one that shows a bigger view of my driveway? That shows kind of like all the way leading into there. That's a good one close up. There's another one. Kind of shows.
Is this the only driveway to your home?
No, it's a second driveway.
Was
I
it
have a
there when
circle
you built
driveway.
it? Did you build the driveway? Or was it
The
there?
driveway's been there since probably the 50s when the house was built.
Okay.
So, another thing about his development is if you see across this view, you see a stake out there by the big tree. Well, from my driveway to that stake out there in the middle of the yard by the big tree is 5.5 feet drop in elevation. From the left property corner to the right property corner, all the way across is an 8-foot drop in elevation. I'm not gonna tolerate a retaining wall out there for him to build it up to make it level to John's front wall. This is gonna be a battle for however long Nick and I gotta do this. But my driveway should be grandfathered in. If it's not, then that goes into a lawsuit. I should have access no matter what's done there. I'm running out of time. One other thing.
You're good. Some of your time was going to get your pictures up
So,
there.
Couple other things, PUD still says that they could put a road through there if they have to. It needs to be as discreet. The gate on the other end needs to be all the way at the other end of that little niche. There's also at the corner of John's property where Nick's property connects is a city storm shelter for the neighborhood. Who's gonna is the city gonna pay to tear that down, fill it in, replace it, whatever? Because if they gotta put a road across it, there's a problem there.
City storm shelter.
The pond and all of that stuff, there just needs to be a better plan before all of this gets approved, because this gives Vin two different accesses into our neighborhood that we don't want. We don't want the roads here. We don't want the access. The fire department, they're just south of us. Let them in, let them do their job. I was on the fire department for 3 years, not in Broken Arrow. Let them get in there and get what they need to do. But, I mean, I don't know. That's about all I got to say.
Okay.
Thank you.
sir.
So
when he says we have a storm shelter, what is he talking about?
I need to check that out. I mean, Kenny.
There is
Like
a
an
storm
underground?
shelter there. I never did know who it was, but it's in the right of way. There's a storm shelter. This is C.A. McWilliams, you know, the owner of Broken Arrow Ledger. This is his home that we're looking at. And I'm guessing somebody else sold that probably, and again, this is just a guess, for a future street through there. And they're objecting to it, and I'm objecting to a street through there.
Oh, yeah. It doesn't make
You know,
any
we don't want
sense.
that, but anyway, it is a narrow piece of property through there. But there is a storm shelter right at the end of it.
I'm also hearing that their driveway is on someone else's land. Is
May
that,
I comment on the storm shelter? I own it.
I mean, it's not a city storm shelter if he owns it.
It's kind of on you. I offered to.
Can you come up
Come
to the
back.
mic?
I'll keep my comment to just that.
Well, you can speak, we can let you speak if you're just late getting here.
I've owned the property for 8 years. It is in the city easement, but whenever we moved in, I contacted the city about the shelter, and when we got it open, there's a lot of people in the neighborhood that have lived there forever and knew about it. But I contacted the city and said, hey, is there interest in rehabbing it? Because it's falling apart. And there was not at that point. Somebody did come out from the city and look at it. I didn't meet them there, but they did look at it and say there wasn't interest in that point
Okay.
of rehab.
And then what was your name again?
John Lindeman. I
Oh,
live
John,
to the
you're
south.
John. You're John.
You're
Yes.
John. Hi, John.
Did you have any more comments that you wanted to make that you missed the sign in?
If I'm allowed to, that'd be great.
Ask the mayor.
Yes, because, we were going to address your email, so
Okay.
you can address it.
First, thank you for that. I appreciate the time and sorry for not getting here in time for that. What I would add to that section, somebody mentioned basketball, absolutely. And I think that's where the most generalized statement would be a recreational area would be prohibited there. And that's really for noise and for traffic and to keep just the peacefulness of the neighborhood. But if we can't go quite that general, then the other staff recommendation or consideration would be to limit it, exclude racket sports, which I think is great. My preference obviously would be the most general to disallow recreation in that area. It's small, and I think Brian's pictures did a good job of showing that. It looks nice and large here with a really small line for a path. It's not that big, and it really will have a significant impact both on my home and the home of Brian as well. So,
Okay. I would assume that the developer was just trying to find something to do with that very odd shape of property,
I
but it
assume
makes
that's the
perfect
case.
sense that you wouldn't want that in your front yard, so.
I think it's an incidental strip of land, and I understand that you would want to get the most out of your investment.
Right.
I think unfortunately, there's not a lot that can be done there without having a significant impact on the existing neighborhood, both in terms of noise, and Brian mentioned drainage and stuff. There's other problems with that property. I think it's not buildable for like a home or something like that on there, so it seems fairly incidental.
And it seems the developer was addressing those concerns, which is good.
Right.
So, okay.
That's all I have.
Awesome, thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you.
Wade Sewell.
Good evening, I'm Wade Sewell, and I live at 1214 North Ash Avenue. And I took a couple pictures, and one of them I didn't quite make the email, but I have a picture pulled up on my phone. Anyway, this is a picture of my backyard, and it's kind of the view of what we're going from to and what it looks like as it is. And they're going to take all those trees down and put up one tree per 50 foot. And I know that's city code. Just asking a little bit more because there's going to be in that backyard, I mean, you're actually going to be facing the pool in that picture. And but a lot of those trees aren't good. This is another tree. This will be the third tree since, not including the Father's Day storm, that has fallen onto my property. And I don't own these trees, but they're really not in good shape. That one's termite infested, and it's just one big sponge. That fell about a month ago. You saw the other tree that's down currently. And not only any trees, I don't own a chainsaw. So it's real tough for me to get these out. But if that one falls, that one's right next to, in the other picture, it's going to fall right on our child's playhouse. It's the one standing straight up. You can kind of see it. But that would be the fourth tree that we've had. So these aren't really great trees. So the
would
developer,
be good for them to be removed.
Right. The developer, though, has said a couple times that he uses verbiage that or the trees that stay count as the 50 trees. Or not 50 trees, 20 trees. That whole section is just 20 trees. I got 4 condos going directly behind my house. So in that 50 foot, that puts 1.5 trees per lot. And that's not enough privacy for 4 condos. There's another picture that I got that shows just the depths from my back patio. I have an 18-foot barn, and the barn is the barn top is below my deck. So the condos behind my house will reach 60 foot, I believe. So that's 18 foot. So for the privacy, these trees need to be tall. There needs to be more than 1.5 per house. And also, with the time I have left, recreational sports in this PUD on the south and east side needs to include the recreational pool right smack behind their house. It'll just be as noisy as any sport played on a court. And that's all I have.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
In this picture here, where the barn's at, are we looking to the west? Is the back of the barn your property line?
Yes, the back of the barn is about 4 foot off, 3 or 4 foot off my property line.
Are there quite a few trees on further west from that location?
Yes. So the one tree that's decrepit, that's about the thickness of the majority of them behind there. They're that size or smaller. Yes, there's quite a few trees, and I wouldn't even be opposed to get rid of the bad ones that are falling down, and you can see dead ones to the right that are leaning that have been on my agenda to go ahead and get them down before they fall on my kids. But that one also is on my agenda before it falls on our kids and playhouse. But if we could leave the good trees, and that would add to the 50, leave the 50 and then leave all the good ones. As I was taking these pictures, there's more trees starting to grow that we could even leave. But this fight here is about privacy and not anything else, not the community, but a 60-foot tall structure. You're going to have that's I'm assuming the roof line, but the fourth or third story is going to be 50 foot, and that's going to be taller than our house. So we're going to be eye to eye when we walk on the back porch, and that's what I'm trying to prevent.
Well, and I understand your frustration. I purchased a piece of land in a neighborhood 3 years ago, and I was told it wouldn't develop for 5 to 10 years, and 3 months later, they tore all of those trees out, and so I had to open, so.
Yeah,
I understand, but the problem is, unless you own the land behind you.
Sure, and I'm not really. When we bought the house, we weren't dummies. I even told my
Like,
wife
at some point,
they're
you knew it would
gonna
develop,
develop
right?
it, right?
Yeah.
So we were all willing, bought the property, knowing this is going to happen. We didn't think it was going to be 71 units on 11 acres. But again, I don't want you telling me what I'm going to do on my property, so I'm not going to tell them what to do on their property. I just want privacy, and then the noise in the pool is going to be pretty. I mean, I just imagine screaming kids all day long. So, in a good way. All right.
I just want to say,
Thank you.
on behalf of the council, it's one of these things. Change is hard.
Yep.
We're all averse to change. We're used to what we're used to. But as a council, we're stuck with making decisions that are going to be best for the city, best for the citizens, and it's not my job to tell you what you can put. You want to put a pool in your yard. It's not my job to tell you, hey, you can't put a pool in your yard because your neighbor might not like it. And in essence, we're doing the same thing. I'm not saying which way we're going here, but in essence, we're doing the same thing to someone else. We've got to enjoy the privilege, the benefits of the trees back there for the years. So there's someone else's, and now someone else owns them. It's kind of theirs to do with what they want. And there's also no limitations on you putting privacy things in your yard to enhance the privacy as well.
On that note, there actually is. We do have a 20-foot easement back there, so I can't put privacy trees up in my yard to block that out. I mean,
So
I can
your yard
plant
doesn't
them.
extend 20 feet?
Yes. So, and that runs, to my knowledge, all the way across.
Is your barn in that easement and your play
It is
ground?
it is a shed on removable. Yes. So when
You can move it.
the placement of the barn was
We're
specifically.
not coming to get your barn.
There's a lot of consideration to move that barn in a 24-hour span. Yes.
He's like, never mind.
Yeah, like,
All right, thank you,
All right.
sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, wait. Casey Sewell.
Good evening, Mayor Wimpy, Council. My name is Casey Sewell. I live at 1214 North Ash Avenue. And I'm one of the residents along the east border of this development, Finn Park development. We've lived in this home for 6.5 years. The unassuming road view of my home would never suggest the magical beauty you would find in our backyard, which you all just saw the pictures. It's a secluded, tree-filled private space that's provided so much joy and security to our family over the years. We're a homeschooling family, so our days are spent out back, exploring nature and the beauty of God's creations. There's lots of wildlife back there to observe, as you'd imagine. And just a lot of beauty in this green space. In recent months, we've been called naive for purchasing a home with undeveloped property behind it and expecting no change. We're not naive. We always knew there was a chance that there was something could happen and it would be sold and it would all go away. So following the numerous meetings that we've attended, one thing's clear. They own the land. Things are going to change. We need to just embrace that. So tonight I'm just speaking in hopes that our requests might be met. They're just requests from us, the residents in the current neighborhood. But we don't have unreasonable things that we're asking. So the PUD plans have the pool set to be built behind our backyard, mine and our northern neighbors. The pool is a safety concern for our family. We have 3 small children. The noise and the lighting of this recreational space is another concern. So my ask for this is just to get the wording changed, as some others have mentioned, from pickleball courts to include no construction of any recreational areas along the eastern and southern borders of the development. There's 11 acres. I know you said that's like telling someone that they can't build a pool in their backyard, but there's 11 acres. There's just commercial property along the west side and nothing along the north side. So it just doesn't seem unreasonable to ask it to be somewhere different than along the fence line of an existing community. Our peace and privacy is being eliminated by this development. The requirements involving a 6-foot opaque fencing, 30-foot green space buffer, and only 1 tree being required every 50 linear feet is in no way going to provide privacy to us or those moving in. The elevation difference between my house, my backyard, and the fence line is significant. We're on a hill. We look directly down onto the property. Also, we can't plant, like my husband said, we have that easement along the back, the utility easement, so we can't plant our own privacy trees there. We can't, we can't do that. So my ask for this matter is just increased privacy solutions, whether that means leaving existing mature healthy trees or just increasing the density. So,
Okay.
thank you.
Can I ask you
Any
a question
questions?
before
Yeah,
you go?
absolutely.
I'm looking at the picture right now. I'm counting at least 3 other pools in the neighborhood, like right up against the property. Do you have concerns with those pools as well?
I have a concern with the pool to the south of me. It's never been opened the whole time that we've lived there in 6.5 years. It's covered with a cover, and it does have a fencing around it that's locked, but it's not like a tall fencing. So yeah, I do have concerns with other pools around me as well.
The one to the south of you, you say?
The one to the south of me has never been in use the whole time we've lived there, but yeah, I do have concerns for that too. I mean, I keep a very close eye on my children, but they're children, they're curious, they love pools. They love pools, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So looking at the drawing, so there would be, what, a 50-foot tree like setback, right? And then is that a street in between, like it would be a street between where the pool would be, right? I would assume.
Yeah, so
Yeah, that's what it looks-
on the
that's what it looks
exhibit
like.
that you're looking at, and the applicant can correct me if I'm misspeaking here, but, so there's a 30-foot required buffer space between the east property line and any building. So in that 30 feet, there's a landscape buffer and then also an alleyway that's accessed for those, the row house type developments on the east property line. So there is a roadway between the pool property.
30 feet.
It would go pool, roadway, landscape buffer,
So it'd be
fence.
more than 30 feet between the actual buildings and the property line.
A minimum of 30 feet, but.
Okay. Next, we have Stacy White.
Hello. My name is Stacy White, 1218 North Ash Avenue. I'm actually the homeowner. I actually live right next door to Wade and Casey, so we have the same exact concerns about the pool. I'm just going to read what I put here. I'm 100% opposed to this project for many reasons, mostly because it's not a good fit for our community or our neighborhood. The majority of the residents do not want this, and here's my concern. The pool, obviously, because literally I'm next door to them, so it's the same issue. I have a pool, but the noise is going to be an issue. It's going to be literally where my fence line is, catty-corner to my backyard. So it's going to be between the pool, between Wade's house and my house. We don't want the noise. I don't want the noise. The safety of their kids is concerned. The safety and security of my house is a concern. And I'm 100% opposed to that as well. If we could at least negotiate on the pool, if we can move it internally instead of right against our fence line, maybe more internally on the property somewhere, like way further back. I'd be fine with that. But that's, hopefully we'll be in the talks with that. Next thing is the wildlife. We have a lot of nature back there. I'm a big proponent of nature. I have a ton of nature in my yard. So do they. I would say do an environmental study. I think one of my neighbors saw a bald eagle, and there's pictures they have to prove of that. At least do an environmental study, some sort of study on the wildlife, because as far as I'm concerned, when they take down the trees, they're gone. They have nowhere to go, and they're going to die. And that's a big concern since I'm a nature proponent. At least have these people do an environmental study at their expense. They have the money. Other than that, I'm for security with the pool, move it back. I've been in this house for 2 years for the privacy. And like I said, I came from Tulsa. And it's hard to find a home like this neighborhood that has the privacy that we have. You can't find it anymore in Broken Arrow because everything's being developed and torn down. And this is rare for us. I think I can speak for everyone in this room. And if we could at least keep some sort of nature and trees, that's all I ask. I'm not asking for the world. Just keep some sort of nature and privacy for all of us. Because I have to decide here in a few years if this gets developed whether or not I want to sell my house or not and move. So that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Stephanie Bradley.
Hello. My name is Stephanie Bradley. I live at 1302 North Ash Avenue. It is actually the home I grew up in. I live with my parents, help take care of them, and they help take care of my kids. It's beautiful. I have great concerns. I live next to Stacy. We both have a pool. That pretty blue pool on there on 1302 North Ash is my pool. And I'm a teacher, I spend my summers there, my little break from my students. And it's nice. And to be losing that nature it's heartbreaking. We can sit back out there and see the hawks over her head. We can see Stacy has armadillos growing in her backyard. I mean, there is a lot of nature, and that's heartbreaking. And I think I see that you're excited about this development, and I respect that. But I think where we're losing it's disheartening. It's heartbreaking to see my mom, who has owned this since 76, in what she's going through, knowing that she's losing this. The traffic is still a concern in the 71st and Elm area. My son, who has only been driving for 3 years, has gotten into 2 wrecks trying to get out of our neighborhood, just because people going down 71st Street and trying to get out of our neighborhood. You put more traffic in that concentrated area, and you're putting so many homes. If there were bigger homes, if there were beautiful Broken Arrow homes, as I called them, there wouldn't be as much traffic. It would be easier on that area. You're talking about extra school kids. You're talking about more children in Rhodes Elementary, that's rough. There's a lot of that. Some of the drawings are not transparent. They're not clear on what's going to happen. The beautiful clip art trees, we could have none in our backyard, no trees. And we're used to a thick, dense, privacy, quiet area that we can be in. And I understand where they're coming from. It is heartbreaking. It's sad. And should it not be developed? Of course it should. I mean, that's what happens in a city. But can we just think about maybe not the pool there, like Stacy said, or not there? I mean, if you have this development idea, why there? Why not bigger homes? Why not nicer homes? And the traffic, I think, and the noise level, of course, and the privacy. I don't want them staring into my pool, nor do I want to stare into their bedroom. That is weird. And the way our homes sit, I don't know if you know, Johnny, I know you do. Our homes sit on a hill, so you're looking into their area. It's kind of odd. So they have talked about a wall. You'd have to have, I mean, where are you going to get the privacy? You're talking, who's going to be able to afford that? We can't afford that. So I would just hope that you would think it through a little bit more. That's just my request. Or that they would. I don't know.
If I could just respond.
Yes, sir.
It's not a matter of excitement because I don't benefit from any development in Broken Arrow. I don't own the land. I don't get paid for any of this. I'm just playing, for lack of a better term, devil's advocate, pointing things out. I mean, say someone did build a house behind yours and say, well, I don't want your pool, in your yard because it's,
And I understand, but do you
and
understand that there's a difference
I do.
between one person pool? Like Stacy and I can both be in our pools at the same
I
time.
completely do.
Right, but then you
And-
have a community of how many homes? 70?
I-
And they have a pool? That's not the same.
I understand, and if you will allow me.
No, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry.
And then I'm listening, and we listen to all your concerns. We take all these things into consideration, and then you talk about, not having the trees in your yard, but unfortunately, they're not in your yard. They're on
They're
his
not. They're
property.
behind our property
Right,
and have been
right.
for
Right.
nearly
so-
50 years.
Right. So
Right.
you're, again, enjoying the benefit of something that's
Somebody
not on
else's.
your property as if it was your property. So there's a balance game here.
I understand.
We have to play.
And I do.
And I definitely understand. We had a development going in out by my neighborhood that I wasn't necessarily in favor for, but,
It happens.
it happens.
Yes.
And
I just consideration.
We haven't made a decision yet. We're
Right.
weighing all of this.
I understand. Just listen to mine more.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. That's all I ask.
Spoken like a true teacher.
Right, exactly. You have to obey. All right, thank you.
She's trying to take you to school.
Yeah. My wife's a principal. I get it.
Claudia Taylor.
I'm Claudia Taylor. I live at 1302 North Ash. I'm the old lady on the hill. Just this past week, one morning I was sitting on my back deck with my coffee. It was quiet, no noise. There's a bank of trees, tall trees, mature trees. A hawk was floating on the air. A squirrel was running down. I mean, it was all happening all at once and everything. And I was going, and we're having to give this up. And what are we having to give it up for? For an alley that goes across my backyard. I have a road, I have a street in front of me, and now I'm going to have an alley behind me. I'm living at a crest of a hill. I'm going to be looking straight in to a home or an apartment or whatever it's going to be. Those trees that are there now are tall enough to mask that, but they've got to be saved in order to do that. So I'm just asking, can we use some of the resources that we have to provide some privacy? We enjoyed this privacy for too many years, 40-some years, and everything, and suddenly we're being asked to give up all of that. Our community, our neighborhood has always been quiet. It's always been, it's just comfortable, and we've always had the privacy, so it's really hard to think about giving that all up. So I just ask that you give some consideration to that. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Amanda, as far as the tree line goes behind the house,
Excuse me?
no, I'm sorry, I was talking to Amanda, thank you. They can preserve the tree, they have to have a buffer.
Yeah, so there's options in the zoning code built in. We do have tree preservation credits. So what that means is if you do a tree survey, identify the types, the size of trees, they can count for a certain number of trees that you would have planted. So if it's a larger tree, it might count for 2 young trees. But that will have to be done. They'll have to have a landscaper go out there and actually check and see what trees are savable,
Sure.
what ones need to be torn out for safety purposes. So all of that really kind of happens in the site planning when they get ready to clear the land. Just being honest, sometimes it's more cost effective to raise them all than to go out and try to save some. So there's different options available, but yes, tree preservation is an option. It's not a requirement in our code.
And
Yeah.
I believe the developer's here too, and they
Oh, yeah.
may speak to some of this. You know, sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. I'm not sure what their plans
Yeah.
are, but
Well, and I know, like I said, behind my house, I thought that I was gonna have at least 5 years to enjoy the woods behind me and the wildlife, and I had 3 months, and I still have a little PTSD from the trees breaking all around me, but the good news is I still have hawks that fly over my house, I have squirrels, I have hummingbirds, I still have a lot of wildlife that does still come, and there's already houses being built behind us, but what I would like to see is no matter what, if this goes through, that as many trees as possible could be preserved, because you can't plant a tree and it'll take 50 years for it to be a buffer and provide some of that privacy, so.
And I will say, so generally speaking, people don't like to plant trees in easements for obvious reasons, but city code does allow medium to small trees to be planted in easements all over the city. So it is possible. It's one of those, you run the risk of if PSO comes in and rips out a line, they're going to rip out your trees. So it's
Yeah.
a risk you take, but I'd say a large majority of those trees are in an easement now.
Yeah.
And
And where my
don't
house
dig
sits-
down too deep to plant them either.
Yeah,
Call
and where my
before you
house
do.
sits, I'm looking down on the property right behind me as well. I'm hoping it'll be a really cool person I can do a zip line to their house, maybe. Just an option.
So they did mention that there was an eagle also back there. Do we do an environmental study, or would the builder do an environmental study to make sure we're not killing endangered species?
Yeah.
Yes, we have no requirements in our ordinances to do an environmental study.
But
Is that not an,
But
I
that's
think it's
a
a federal.
federal, that's a federal thing. You can't, I mean, I would think you can't
Trevor,
destroy
Kenny?
habitats
City of Broken
for
Arrow cannot
eagles.
enforce federal. The developer has to follow the federal laws on their own.
Okay, say that again.
The
We're
City
not
of Broken
charged
Arrow
federal
cannot
ordinances.
enforce a federal law like that. The developer has to follow the federal laws.
Okay.
okay. We had 2 other people who did not wish to speak, but were in opposition to the development. Does the developer want to speak?
Good evening. Nick Barker, 320 East Broadway Avenue. I live 2 blocks that way. We have a lot of wildlife here in downtown Broken Arrow as well. Yeah, happy to answer any questions, or I can address comments that were made. I don't know if anyone has a preference.
Well, and first, it looks like you guys redid the PUD or the layout of it, so you've taken out recreational. What is your vision for that space right now? Is it just a walking trail, or?
We had envisioned pickleball courts.
Right.
That was not received well. And so we were happy to oblige, and we understand their concern. A lot of the design of the neighborhood was done with the intentional purpose of minimizing the impact on the Kenwood Hills subdivision, whether they believe it or not. And so, yeah, I mean, if we can remove that, I think we've got some other ideas of places that we could put it, either within our own development or, you know, on the detention site. So, you know, that might be a possibility as well. And once again, we can work with the city to see if that's, you know, viable or not.
Sure.
I mean, yeah, the initial thought was pickleball courts. We had talked about, you know, a dog park or walking trails or, you know, something that would involve physical activity. But, you know, I don't know what the official classification of recreational activity is. So I don't know what parameters we would have to use that space or not. The other issue that we're still working through is the second point egress for the development. So if we utilize the West Madison extension, the North Circle Drive, although that connection has to be there, it doesn't meet our fire requirement for the separation of the 2 access points. And so it's possible, if we don't have the ability to connect up north on the north side to Oakland, or on the west side of the detention pond, that we would have to utilize that connection to Ash as our second point of egress. It would remain gated, so similar to the North Circle Drive configuration. So it would not dump additional traffic through. It would just be for fire access only. And so right now, until we have those details worked out with those other options, we can't eliminate the fact that there could be a roadway there if we're not able to find another solution. It's not any of our first options. It's not what we would prefer, but if that's what the requirement is, then we would be left with no choice, and it would just become access to the subdivision.
There wouldn't be anything but a road in it then, is that correct?
Probably a road and sidewalks, similar to the rest of the development, yeah.
What I'm hearing is a lot of, we don't know what, I feel like we are not ready to move forward with this. Me personally, I just feel like there are so many unknowns right now. Everything I'm hearing has a question mark at the end of it.
What would you say is unknown?
And, well, for me, I'm going back to the traffic stuff. And I don't think there's anything you're going to be able to say here to me that's going to, today, because I have asked a ton of questions already, like just to staff, and none of it made me feel good about this. And it's not the development itself, it's the, because I'm not necessarily against the actual development, the traffic is still a huge concern to me because this is one of the most traveled roads that we have, in Broken Arrow from getting off the highway there at Elm. And we already have approved to do improvements there, but we don't know when we're doing the improvements, and they need to be done now. I mean, it's dangerous. There's wrecks there constantly already. And so the entrances onto Elm, that concerns me a lot. That concerns me the most of anything is the traffic onto Elm. And
that's just one of the entrance points.
Right, and that's just one of them. I mean, it's just, so then then of course we have Kenosha that is also, I don't know how that's going to work. Like I don't know if there's going to be 2 entrances onto Elm, so it's just going to be extra. I mean, I don't know. I don't like any of it on the
the
traffic
West
part
Madison
of
would
it.
provide one entrance onto Elm.
Yeah, but like I said, there's nothing your mill say right now that makes me feel.
But feel free to share whatever you.
Yeah, you go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Sure.
I'm Urban Desire. If I could just offer some clarification, and I'll try to get a little closer so you can hear me. There are 2 points of access to the west, so they can come out on the extension of Madison. You see on the southwest. I don't know if you can kind of put a cursor over that. And they can go down North Birch Avenue down to Kenosha. The traffic can also go along West Madison all the way out to Elm. So they have 2 points of access to get out of the neighborhood. We actually offered, obviously there's a stub street that goes to Circle Drive. Just planning practices in the city policy is just to connect to sub streets. We're gating that out. So there really is no traffic impact to the Kenwood neighborhood through the Kenwood neighborhood, although we were happy to offer, if they didn't want to gate it and use our neighborhood, they could come through our neighborhood. Because I know they have real trouble getting out on Kenosha. If they wanted to come over to Elm, we were more than happy. But they wanted to gate it, so we were happy to oblige. The other option that we're working with the city right now, obviously you can see the West Street that goes up along between the detention area and our site. We'd been working with the city. They wanted us to bring that up and then connect all the way to the north parcel to provide that site with access. And there's future plans in that site to connect up that road. So that would be a third point of access. The timeline there is they're in development just like we are. So who builds first? But both the planning documents are aligning to be able to connect those streets once we're completed and they're completed. So that'll be a third point of access, again going north and then west to Elm. And then for fire, really just for the fire access, because I think we're also, like, our last resort would be to actually put any sort of asphalt and pavement on that little stretch of land that I think is the contingent piece of land that goes into Kenwood. There's a fire access right now along the west side of the detention pond, and that's what we're working through. So right now there's 4 options for the fire access. The 4th one, last resort, because all this didn't work out with the timeline, it would be to just put, and it would be a fire apparatus access road, right? So those don't have to be asphalt. They could, as long as they hold the fire apparatus weight, they could be something more natural. But that honestly is our intention. But because, like I said, because we can't determine right now, and that would be sorted out when the site plat comes up for review and approval, and those details would be finalized. I hope that just provides a little more clarity just into the intention and where those any sort of traffic access points. We've got 2 immediately, 3 potentially in the future, all to the west and the south, to those major arterial roadways in Broken Arrow.
Well, and I'm concerned because, like I talked about at the last meeting, there's nothing that has changed as far as we already need to widen Elm. I mean, we need to widen it. And we are going to widen it. It's happening. We just don't know when. And right now we have a school that comes out on Norman on the west side of Elm.
Further north
that
than
is-
Madison, right?
It comes out on Norman, but so that's in between, between Oakland.
But, yeah, further north than Madison.
Yes, further north than Madison.
Okay.
And so, but there's no turn lane on Elm right there. And at Lansing, it is horrible, the traffic. I mean, trying to get in and out, you can hardly ever turn left out of there if you're heading on Lansing and heading north. And so, and there's no turn lanes right now. So, I mean, and I've seen, I don't know how many wrecks. I lived in that subdivision for 19 years. And I haven't lived there for 14 years now, and it's worse now than it was when I lived there. And it was bad then.
Yeah.
And I really worry about the school traffic coming in and out because it's so hard for those buses to get in and out of there already. And, I feel like there needs to be a stoplight there already, but that's a whole other conversation.
Yeah,
So,
definitely.
that we're not having right now, so.
Yeah, I think that there's certainly the potential for congestion. I think one would naturally think, hey, if I'm going up towards the BA, I'm going to take, West Madison over to Elm, and I'm going to turn right, as opposed to trying to cross 4 lanes of traffic and turn south onto Elm. If my intention is to go south or to go east, then I'm going to take that North Birch connection down to Kenosha, which offers further separation from the Main Street 71st streetlight, where the Kenwood residence entrance right there by the fire station is awkwardly close. It really doesn't offer, well, it's a very difficult intersection to navigate, but the North Birch is further separated and much easier to navigate if you're turning either east or west. And so, yeah, I think at those 2 points, I think Elm could be improved significantly, and we've talked through that, and I think that, there's certainly plans in the work for that. But I think, obviously for the time being, there's multiple egress points for this development. And it's not like these houses are going to be available tomorrow.
I don't care if you put in 10 egress points, it's still the same amount of traffic. I mean, you
Sure.
could put.
Dispersed in different areas, though. We're
Right.
not dumping onto the same intersection.
But they're within a couple blocks of each other. I mean, it's not like they're a mile apart. I mean, they're within a block of each other, really.
So a couple of things.
No, I don't think.
I think I'm hearing, one, if I may just address a couple of things that Vice Mayor Gillespie said, is she was talking about first thing I heard was the uncertainties, to some of the decisions. I think some of that depends on the decision we make tonight before they can get to certainties for what they're going to do with their property. So I understand that. And I think the solution to the traffic issue that she's referring to is being addressed in the plans to widen. I don't really think that's something that they really control, the Elm
But we do.
traffic. Right.
We can vote
But-
no and control it.
Well, that's not going to fix the traffic that's already there that you're
No,
already.
it's not. But go ahead, sorry.
And, I don't know how long it's going to be till that's done, but again, this is not going to grow up overnight either.
No.
As far as their development, it's not going to be ready to move into tomorrow.
You addressed it in the last meeting, but what was your timeline? What do you think your estimated timeline of?
Our hope would be late 2025 to go vertical with structures, and at that point, we're still, 6 to 8 months from livable structures. So realistically, we're
26, 20, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
And that's
yeah,
in phases.
2 years.
Yeah.
And that would be from the first structure, and then we're estimating a 3-year build out. So, 2028-ish, before we would be at full capacity, with vehicles entering and exit.
Yeah.
Let me make, if I can, are you through for a second? Okay, let me make a couple of comments. Where to start? You know, I've lived in that subdivision for over 40 years, you know. My main goal was, because I know how dangerous it is for our only 3 exits to get out onto Kenosha. There's just no way. You've got one red light, and it's not at any of our intersections. So my main goal was to try to see a development that did not dump any traffic into the subdivision, because that's just going to add more people trying to get out and more wrecks. And those stub streets are made to extend on. And for all these years, I've fought to go ahead and do that. But if it's going to make it where it's a dangerous intersection, then I'm not for it. So I went into this looking at this. That was my main concern, and still is my main concern. The big development going up by my house up on the north probably is going to be a big commercial area. And that's going to be, right now, Ash is going to be a gated area for emergency vehicles to go in there. I'm excited about that, because if that's not, then it's opened up, and then people can drive or to get out. My house, I live on a hill, big hill. I look down on the house of these people's house. My house looks down on their roof. And the people behind me, their houses look down on my roof, you know, back there. So it stops with the houses behind us and go from there. I think that the couple of comments that I have is that I think this is a good project. I think it needs some more work done. I agree with the vice mayor, especially in the traffic part of it. It needs more work done, point of ingress and egress. And I like what you're working with on that. You're working with staff on it. I don't want to see staff to be put in a position to where it's a do or die, but depending on what they do, you know, with it. So it's that's kind of a loose end. If this stayed the same, say it doesn't pass, I'm telling the individuals in here, if this doesn't pass, this will go back to the comp plan. And the comp plan calls for that 3 acres to be a level 2. Now, R2 can go into level 2. That's the same as our subdivision, is a level 2. But the thing that's different is when it goes to a level 2, an R2, or even an R3, or even R4, if it's a single-family house, then they're going to dump back through our subdivision, and we can't stop them. The reason that we can stop them now, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, Amanda, but stop them now is because of the high density. It's because the high density cannot go back through our subdivision. So that's keeping it. The other part, that 7 acres, is a level 3. The level 3 in our comp plan, which we've gone by for years, and it's changed every 10 years, that we meet with the planners. Farad has usually led that for as long as I can remember, Daroga, and citizens meet, and we changed the comp plan for the whole city. The comp plan on that 7 acres says that it can be a R4, a 2-family, it can be an R5 or R6, which is a multi-family. It's going to be apartments. Multi-family, R6 is a higher density multi-family. And the last one is a multi-family, a mobile home district. All of that has permission to go in there. So somebody can develop that, and it's going to be hard for us not to let them develop one. Now, we've got apartments over on one side of the subdivision, and I didn't want to see all of us surrounded with apartments. I think this is a unique idea. If the properties are going to be as expensive as what he says, and he does a quality job in doing it, I think it will be good for the community. Maybe it will drive up the property tax a little bit, but that happens unless you put something in there. There's several things that could go in there that I'll assure you would drop your property tax and your property value both. Usually they go together. So that's why I lean toward it if they can work out the last parts of it. The pickleball, I think, is a no-brainer. There should be no recreational, should not be any noise in their yards, one backyard and one front yard. Now, if you do have to make it emergency, go through there, that's the only time it would be used would be with an emergency gate at that point. The trees, we talked about it, trying to save as many trees as we can. You know, we talked about the animals. We like animals too. Sometimes they tear up my yard. If you live on a hill and the armadillos, they compliment the armadillos, don't get into my yard because they start digging into the side of the hill, then your hill washes away. So I remember back when coyotes, when fox used to come through there and deer come through there, wild turkeys come through there several times a year. And then somebody built Bass Pro, and when that developed across the street, then those animals left. So I'm sorry about that, but I do think that we need to look at this seriously, those in the neighborhood, because if not, if it leaves a PUD, then it's going to go back to straight zoning, and it goes back with the comp plan. So the loose ends that I have are working with the city. You keep mentioning in the planning commission meeting, the relationship, the private-public relationship. I'm concerned about that. I don't want to see the city in a position to have to do, this. Now, if they want to do it, to enhance it, it's up to the city manager, but he needs to have that opportunity and us not approve it contingent upon him getting this done, because that's not his responsibility. Because it's unusual for us to go in and build roads into a subdivision. The one that goes to the north of the pond, if there's any way we could do away with it, that would be kind of expensive. The pond itself, the city is the city's. So the city has already got the funding of $50,000 to spend on engineering to clean that up and redo that pond, and the city manager is in the middle of that. Right now, it's a dry pond. It's not supposed to have any water staying in it. Water will rush into it from Bass Pro, that's where it's coming, and from Ferguson. It comes down through there, it'll rush and build up, but it's supposed to go back down to there's no water in it. Now, maybe the engineers will change that. I don't know. But there's several loose ends. We will take care of the recreational problem there, that pond, no matter what happens, because that's going to be something that we have to do. But I just don't want to see us get the city into a bind. It needs to be worked out, and I think that's the loose ends I have. I think you can work the other out, move your pickleball. I sat in the other room listening to you in the planning commission meeting, and I thought, he needs to back away from that. He's going to lose that.
We did. We backed away from it.
I know you
It's not
did.
there.
You just
So
kept on.
let me ask this then. Let's say that you guys say, no, we don't want VIN, don't think it's a good idea, so it reverts back to the original comp plan. What would be the city's response then to the traffic? Because I would imagine that apartment complexes and higher density is going to produce more traffic than what we're proposing. So we're going to be in the same predicament with a less desirable product.
I agree with you 100%.
Which
And my
selfishly,
comment would be the same.
right,
for
but
that
I would
as
say
well.
selfishly, this is a better option for the city to say,
Compared
yes,
to
let's move
300
forward and
apartment.
let's work together to find a solution
I
as
do too,
opposed to reverting
but-
back and not having a say in it.
I do too, but the city wouldn't be obligated to build the streets. Now I know the city managers are wanting to work with you, but no obligation to do it. You've got Birch Street, you know what I mean? I like to see it go north into
Actually,
that street.
Birch Street connects to the city's property, not ours. So there would still be connectivity.
Okay.
We would essentially come through North Ash and
I just
and
think
North
we need to
Circle.
get those worked out within a city budget. I don't want to set a precedence, because I've got other developers that want a city to do that, put streets in for them also. And the city really doesn't put streets in unless it's a special item. I'm not making a decision for the city manager, just don't get him into a bind.
I think I want to read the questions that I asked of staff earlier that they answered. I think it would be important because these are some questions would it be okay if I read the questions and the answers? And so, and then y'all can respond. So, one of them was the need to create accurate estimates. So staff is going to have to create, prepare estimates for requested incentives and, for roads, stormwater detention, beautification. We still need to, figure these out, like the estimates for some of these incentives that you possibly are requesting. And so it's my understanding that y'all had a meeting last week, or was that last week?
We could go yesterday, ma'am.
Okay, so to review the request from the developer, from Mr. Parker, and the meeting resulted in a bunch of questions, and so we're gonna prepare estimates on the request, and once we have the answers to the questions and the appropriate estimates, the city manager will have a recommendation for the governing body. Engineering construction is working on estimates for everything you've asked for in your written document, and we're gonna try to have those estimates completed later this week. And we're not really sure that your estimates coincide with what our estimates are. So this is where my questions are coming up. It's like, because right now we're not just, it's my understanding, we are considering the zoning and the PUD all at once. So we're not just doing a zoning change. It's important that we, we're approving this right now. It's not like we could talk about it later, really. We can talk about the incentives and things we might do, but I just have a lot of questions that I want answered on just what the proposal was submitted. And then the other one I asked was, with all the requested fees and requirements associated with the project, are we confident Mr. Parker has a complete picture of what is required so there are no surprises? And they really can't answer that right now. What my question is, if your project is dependent on our incentives, then I feel like I can't vote on it right now, which is what I said a little bit ago, without knowing what those are. Because I feel like I would be voting on something that I don't know all the answers to my questions. And all of y'all got these questions and answers. So that, I just assumed y'all knew what I was talking about whenever I said I have lots of questions that aren't answered. And that's what my questions are. And I think, because remember, we're not spending our money. The government has no money. It's all the people's money. Yep. And so it's my responsibility to ask those questions so we make sure that we're spending the people's money wisely. And I think it looks like a super cool project. I think it'll happen, but it doesn't mean that I can't say, hey, let's slow our roll for a couple more weeks and maybe get more answers before the next city council meeting. That's all I'm asking.
Couple things. One, I would like to hear from Mr. Spurgeon and Mr. Schwab on their thoughts on this. I know you guys have had some of these meetings, and I'm hearing we don't want traffic going east, we don't want traffic going west. Where do we want traffic to go? And secondly, it's got to go somewhere. We can't helicopter people in and out of the property. And my other question, based on what you just said, because I haven't heard this yet, is your project depending on the incentives? Because it's highly possible that even if we do or don't do the incentives, you may continue with the project, just be out of your pocket versus incentives. I would like to hear you speak to that. Is it dependent upon if the city approves X incentive or not, whether you're going to do the project, or would you still do it regardless?
It would, we would love nothing more than to work in unison with the city to develop then. Is it dependent on it? No. Does it make it more viable? Yes. Could we strip away the commercial component, remove the gates, and dump everything into Kenwood? Yes, and then we wouldn't be here. That's not our intention. We want to work to develop this property, but we also want to maintain the integrity of Kenwood and honor the residents there as well. And that's one of the reasons why we've proposed what we've proposed. So is that an option? Yes. Is that direction that we want to go? No, it's not what we would prefer. But it's, just like the egress points, it's one of the options that's on the table.
I have one other question too then, and I'm in agreement. It's not so much the facility that you have, it's the points of ingress and egress. And I think that we need to know that, to approve this. But I think the plan is looking good. I heard tonight a lot of people are not pleased with the swimming pool location. Now, I know we have a law in the city that has to do with sound, noise, and light. It couldn't go in. But is there any way that could go off of that east property line, that swimming pool?
Short answer is it's where it is because that's the best placement for it within the development for a number of different variables. We've looked at placing it where the cottage court is that's central to the development. There were some connectivity issues with connecting people from the east to the west side as opposed to having to direct them north and south. Because our intention is a walkable community, we want that connectivity. And I know that there was a number of folks that spoke earlier that had said we're worried about these townhouse structures. They're not townhouse structures. It says very clearly that they're single family. So that was the original proposal. We've taken their comments into consideration and we flipped it where now the townhouse structures, the live work, are on the west property line as opposed to the east property line so that they back up to traditional single family. For us, it works better if we have townhouse or multifamily structures that surround the pool, just because it makes it, I mean, just personally, I think it's less desirable for those houses that abut the pool for the reasons that the other residents are saying. So that was one of the reasons why we put it where we had initially proposed it. But once again, we took, their comments into consideration and we flipped it. And so short answer is no, this is where we would like to see it. We've talked about additional screening measures on the east side of the pool, additional height for the fencing as opposed to the 6 foot, that's the perimeter fencing, just to help with some of that buffer. Obviously, we'll have to abide by the noise ordinance, which is spelled out in the PUD. Lighting, the pool is going to have limited hours of use. That lighting is going to be minimized when it's not in use. For safety reasons, we can't just have it go black. But there's a lot that we've taken into consideration and spelled out in the PUD as well.
Okay. It is an outdoor pool, so it only be used certain times of the year.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm just real quick, just on the process. I mean, so I could tell like the traffic's a big concern for you and the access points. Part of it. Sorry. Part of it is, and please care, because I know Mr. Green, you've mentioned about just this is the PUD, and then the site plan is a separate approval as we develop further. City engineering is a separate approval. We'll go through all those steps, and every step of the way need to get approval from you all as we work out the details. So I think today we're just coming to you with what is in the PUD, which is the zoning, and not the platting, but the zoning and the design intent, and receiving that blessing, moving forward with figuring out what is the structure of the PPP, if there is one, what is our cost, what is their cost, and working that out in separate agreements and approvals as part of the standard approval process with the city. So I think getting a green light here opens us to allow us to engage in that in good faith. And so I think that, unless I'm misunderstanding, but I think from what you were saying, just kind of highlighting what we're approving here versus what will come as part of that process.
I still would like to hear from Mr. Spurgeon if we could.
Sure, thank you, Mayor, members of council. Mr. Parker, good to see you this evening. Let me mention just a couple of things before I make some comments. There's no question from my perspective that this project is unique. It is absolutely unique compared to the other types of housing that we have in Broken Arrow. Having worked in a community previously that had an incredibly unique housing development, I understand the impact that this type of development could actually have for our community, okay? It's because of that uniqueness that I'm even considering, unless directed by the council, any type of incentives beyond stormwater, okay? Because I think there is certainly, as I said to Mr. Parker last fall, there is certainly a reason to try to partner as it relates to the stormwater because of that regional detention basin that is there. If this was just a traditional housing development as we have in our community, there's no way that I could recommend, or I believe the council would have a hard time justifying to every other developer why we aren't providing the same types of incentives. Secondly is that Broken Arrow has a history, and we could be here for another 30 minutes if I started detailing the public-private partnerships that we have approved throughout this entire community. And so when we've done that, even since I've been here and before I got here, we did things that made sense. We did things that either increased sales tax, created more primary jobs, created the atmosphere that made Broken Arrow what it is today. It's an affordable community, a safe community, and every other thing that's on the menu. The the one thing that I'm looking at right now is that any project really has two parts to it. It has the construction side, which is the site improvements, and then it has the buildings itself. And our ordinance and our code of fees has expectations for approvals and associated fees for both sides. And we're not just looking at the building of the homes here. There are site improvements at every site developer. In a lot of cases in our community, the person or the individual that builds a home isn't the same person that actually builds the actual site itself, puts the streets and the roads, the water and the sewer and the stormwater in. They get that taken care of, and then the developer comes in and get whatever's been approved, that they build the units, albeit residential or it's commercial. So with that being said, a week ago yesterday, we sat down and Mr. Parker put together a very nice 5 or 6 page document that detailed the project and the partnership that he was requesting from the city. And that meeting resulted in, as the vice mayor said, we have to confirm those incentives. And that's being done by Charlie Bright. You've heard Charlie Bright's amazing. You heard him tonight. He answered every single question in less than 7 seconds. But he does need time to basically get estimates together when you're talking about road improvements, when you're talking about stormwater improvements and so forth. Kenny is responsible ultimately for stormwater, so we have to make sure that him and Patrick from engineering construction department have all of the costs associated with doing the regional detention basin. The one thing we learned from looking at the proposal, there are a lot of unanswered questions from our perspective about really more, I would say, on the site development itself, and making sure that the developer understands what the expectations are for the city. There were requests for the waiver of certain permit fees associated with each lot. There are other fees that are out there, and I needed to understand what all the menu of fees are in order to determine what that total amount is so that I can discuss it with the developer. The other thing was there was a lot of did you know, what I call DYI, to basically, DYK I should say, to say, do you understand that this is going to be required or that's going to be required? Because what I don't want, if council approves this, is there to be really thinking through any unintended consequences. Because what happens is if everything's not clear, then it creates hard feelings, and then it's finger pointing, and then all of a sudden somehow we always end up to be the bad guy. And I don't want to do that. I'm not going to do that on this because we don't need to do that on this. And then finally, and this is something that's most concerning to me, is the traffic. I'm very concerned about that because if we don't have a plan, then what's going to happen, the homes are going to get built, and then every resident that lived there is going to be calling you and the city manager's office wanting to know when we're going to do something about a traffic signal so they can for a protected turn left. Now, I will tell you, because it came up, is that corridor is in that grant that we received from the federal government to actually study what is the best way to actually reconfigure that area. Because according to Kenny Schwab, we're going to go from Aspen all the way down to the county line road area along Highway 51. So to actually, could we go and start designing that and put a traffic signal in, maybe go to and adding a middle turn lane? Absolutely, if that's the direction from council. But it makes, from my perspective, it makes more sense if we wait and let the consultant come in and study that area and determine, because not only do we have a need for that traffic signal, up by Ferguson, it is so cattywampus up there. We have a tremendous opportunity to realign that entire area. So really, this traffic signal here, while it's important to Mr. Parker and his team, it's a small element of redesigning that area to better suit the tens of thousands of cars that use that every single day. So I can't recommend that we jump forward and do something when we have this grant that can tell us. And if we do that, there could be federal dollars that could follow to help us make those improvements to realign that area, because you also see the Furniture Road development has interest in there, which is going to put more traffic in that area. And so what I shared with Mr. Parker, and I'll be glad to answer any questions, I just need a few more weeks in order to confirm with those estimates. And then I want to sit down with him after he's had time to take a look at them and see exactly, make sure we're all working on the same sheet of music, so to speak. And then I can look at, see where he's at, what he is willing to do, and then I can see, is there something that I'm willing to recommend to the council? I'll share everything with the governing body, then ultimately it's your decision if we want to expend those resources for a new public-private partnership. But until I get everything together, I'm not in a position to say that I would recommend this as it relates to the incentives portion.
But from a project portion, because
Yes.
we're not talking about incentives right now.
No, the project itself, I mean, if the residents have some serious issues, and if those could be addressed, I mean, to me, I think it's something that we should consider.
And it sounds as if, I mean, I appreciate that you are actually addressing the concerns when it comes to no longer having pickleball courts or anything in that area now, or even the consideration, because if, the only other thing that I would think of is you would have, like you said, maybe put the commercial, but I don't know that anybody wants commercial backed up to their house either and having delivery trucks and such, so.
Well, and just working together with staff, because of the commercial components and having commercial delivery vehicles, as well as the traffic for, servicing those commercial businesses, there was some connectivity that we had to have, and with right-of-way widths, it was gonna rob from the overall aesthetic of the development, so that's why we ended up putting it on the west side. And then that commercial element, once again, connects to the property to the north that's undeveloped, but soon will be, so that it provides them another point of egress as well as us going up to the Oakland extension. So we've really tried to take everything into heart. The tree planting, once again, we explained that last time. The fence height, the 6 foot, opaque fence was never intentioned for privacy, because once again, they're towering over, the land that we're looking to develop. And so it's really to provide restricted access to and from each development, so we don't have people that are wandering through yards and so forth. But there's really nothing that we could build that would act as a privacy screen, because there's such a discrepancy with the elevations. We had talked last planning meeting in regards to maintaining the trees, keeping the trees. If we're able to do that, that's certainly something that we're open to. The 50-foot planting, what we didn't want to do is bottleneck ourselves. Our intention is to have plantings that are on each property line, but on the east side of the alley, which would then help restrict the vantage points from the Kenwood residents through the structures. They would still see the back of the structures, but those trees would help, prevent those sight lines through the development. But because there's varying lot widths, we can't spell that out on the PUD. So once again, that's why we stayed with what was called out as city code. But our intention is to have plantings on each of the shared property lines going down that east property line. So we've really tried to, once again, accommodate everything that's been brought up. I mean, other than the street access roads, obviously we have no say over that. So if we did, I would say yes, do it.
Kenny?
Oh, that's funny.
What's the estimate of, now that we have when do we think we're going to do the study on Elm?
Okay, so that was part of our $5.84 million grant from the federal government, the RAISE grant. The contract is to them. We're waiting on them to execute the contract. We have been for quite some time. My understanding is once you got approved, it can take upwards of a year or so, and that's about right where we are. So I would hope we have that by the end of the year, but it's completely on the federal schedule. Something called a presidential election may interfere with some of that right now on getting that approved. But we are waiting on the federal government to approve that contract.
Is there, I mean, I know there's been other incidents. Can we reach out to our legislators to check on things like that?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So we're not waiting on the study, we're waiting on them to approve that we can do the study.
So the contract actually allows to go what they call preliminary design.
Okay.
So that $5.84 million will actually allow us to hire. We've already selected the engineer for this, enter into the contract with them, and then they can actually do up to 60% plans on Elm. I would like to point out, Elm might be, this stretch of Elm from Kenosha 71st Street north to actually Broken Arrow Expressway might be the most challenging roadway section in Broken Arrow. Moving north, First Street is Lansing. There's Lansing on either side. Keep going north, you hit Madison, one side only. Norman, one side only. Keep going up, you hit Oakland, one side only. Moving north, you hit Oakland on the opposite side, they do not line up. Then you hit Queens, it does not line up. You hit Southwest Boulevard, it does not line up. Planning prefers, and I completely agree, the intersections line up across the street. When they don't line up in their T intersections, it creates a nightmare for signalization. That's what you have on this stretch of Elm. To go in and try to fix it, we're not going to be lining streets back up. There might be a section that we could make some improvements and maybe get rid of a signal and move it to the south a little bit. But to go in and just put in a signal like at Norman, it's a T intersection. So let's be honest, when the school's in session, morning and afternoon, when they're coming in, there's 30 minutes a day, maybe that you're hitting traffic. The rest of the time, it's through traffic. The moment someone triggers a turning movement, it stops traffic for 23 and a half hours out of the day when you don't want it stopped. So it actually creates a problem. Even if you have it timed, you can synchronize them and still time it. It doesn't make a difference when a car sits there to turn left at, noon. All of a sudden, it stops the traffic flow. So it's very challenging. You get right back into what you see over on Lynn Lane, 9th Street. More signals is not the answer, less signals is. And trying to tie the streets together is going to be extremely problematic. Now, one thing that we would consider, and a great discussion we've talked about, we do require traffic studies. This will require a traffic impact analysis. That's not done at the planning stage, that's done at the engineering stage. That's just how we've handled it. I think most communities handle it that way. If you think about the planning state, they hire an engineer to go out and do a traffic study, and then all of a sudden it doesn't get approved. They spent the property owner has spent several $1,000s to get a PUD approved. So that's typically done at the engineering state, which will come later. We would require traffic impact analysis here. So at Madison, I would highly expect a 3 lanes, at least at the intersection of Elm. That way, all right-hand going north movement, that's free flow. That's not a problem. It's going left. And let's be honest, if it's not 3 lanes and a car is sitting there trying to go left, that car wanting to go right behind it is stacked. So that would require 3 lanes. I think Birch would require 3 lanes. And then 2 other things and I'm done. Stormwater, Mr. Spurgeon touched on that. That is our detention pond. It's been in, I think, since 2004, 2005. Whether this development goes in or not, we've got to make improvements. The biggest issue is the core. It is a blue line creek right along the side of it, so we'll have to address that with the core. If you turn it into the beautiful picture that's up there, a wet pond, it looks great. That's going to be a big expense because you've got to haul all of that dirt out. We just did a little bit on the park on Florence. This is probably 5 times the park on Florence, so maybe 6. It's substantial. It's going to be very expensive. Then the last thing, we touched on the federal laws on environmental. That's the Endangered Species Act. I said that's a federal law. Endangered species, if there are endangered species there, then that developer has to address that. If it's water, it's Fish and Wildlife, it could be the Corps of Engineers. The city's not, we don't have any jurisdiction on endangered species. If there are no endangered species on that property, then there's nothing to address. Coyotes, armadillos, hawks are not endangered. Talked about a bald eagle. Well, that's protected under a separate law. The thing about endangered species, it's their mating. So nesting for certain birds, it's the mating habitat. If you're outside of the mating season, you can work on that property. That's just by the Endangered Species Act. So I just wanted to clarify that. Didn't want anybody to walk away thinking Broken Arrow doesn't have anything to do with that. It's an endangered species. It's federal law.
You had a comment earlier. Do you recall it, or did you forget? It's been a bit.
No, I think I got everything with having Mr. Spurgeon speak, and
Okay.
they address the other thing.
Did you have anything else you needed to add?
No.
No?
I think it's a good project. You know, this is a
Great project.
buffer area. For those of you that don't know, that's from a subdivision, single-family houses, to industrial park, commercial, all of that. So it's definitely going to be a buffer area in there. And that's what the comp plan calls for, and so that's what's going to go in there. If this project would work, I think it would be really great. Pleased with it more than three-story apartments, and I'm a pro apartment person. The apartments in Broken Arrow are really nice, expensive apartments. But I just would rather see this than I would apartments in there. So I think if we could, if you can live with this, is that we could table this for a 3 or 4 weeks.
The live work is 3 stories.
Table it and let us get that final information on points of ingress and egress, and really for you too, you know what I mean, and working with the city. Michael, could we do that in a month?
Yes, we should be in a position to, I'd like to get everything to Mr. Parker in time, so honestly, if we had until the first meeting in October, we can get everything together.
So, but is that on you guys talking about a possible incentives? Because how does that affect the decision we're making tonight? Because he would go forward with the project whether we have incentives or not. So why would we delay?
It's got to have a point of ingress and egress, the exact points of ingress and egress.
Not at this level, though.
Well, it's part of the PUD,
Part of the
knowing where you're
PUD.
coming into, where it's coming from. I just feel like I would rather know where if it's going to be a gated community coming big where the old pickleball place used to be, if it's going to be a gated in there, if they're going to use Madison, if he could research and see if he can go back to the north with that. I just don't like approving a project as much as I like it without knowing exactly which way the traffic is going to be flowing.
Well, and wouldn't that be part of the final plat approval to identify those access points, those points of egress? This is just the conceptual, hey, this is what our intent is, as stated earlier, gives us the green light to then engage with the engineers to get that ball rolling forward, where then we can work through and actually identify where those exact points will be.
I agree, but also with Johnny, but also when you said there weren't 3-story, there is, I saw in here 3 and 4 stories.
The live work are, yes.
Yeah, okay, I just wanted to make sure nobody thought that there weren't
No,
3 and 4
I think
stories.
what Mr. Parks was saying is that instead of 3 or 4 storage apartments, it would be this development.
Right.
No,
And there's no 3 or 4 stories behind in the back of the east side. If you put apartments in there, they're going to be up to the east side.
There are some, right?
Yeah,
The single family is 3-story heights, maximum heights, 50 foot to the peak of the roof.
So the streets that are going into this drawing here are the same streets that you're going to have in your final drawing, is that correct?
Not necessarily, because obviously.
About the location of them.
Yeah,
It's
so
Depending on the
this is a,
traffic there.
yeah, and I don't know if staff can help clarify at all. They know the details more than we do, but this is just for the zoning, right? So this establishes the lot minimums, the widths, the heights, the setbacks, and that sort of thing. This is our intention, but as projects get beyond the PUD approval, then they work with engineering, city engineering, and they work on their final plat. And so this is just kind of giving us a blessing, like the intent of the design, the setbacks, the zoning, the uses are all like, this is good to go. What you guys giving us our blessing to then work with engineering to then finalize and set on the city streets and everything. Obviously, this is where we'd want them, right? This is where we got them, and it's cheap. It's in our best interest to continue with that. But if things will change, and things always do in those projects.
And we have to approve those.
Yeah, and then you get through approval. Yeah, there are multiple approvals will go along the way, but this is again just to kind of clarify the scope of what we're talking about. And Amanda, please clarify if I'm
Yeah.
misspeaking.
When will we approve the PUD then on it?
The PUD is up for vote tonight. So
Yeah,
what you,
that's what
if
we're
you were to
doing.
approve the PUD tonight, what you would be approving is just what Jennifer said, the setbacks, the screening requirements, all of the things that are specifically laid out in the PUD as far as design standards, and zoning, so actual use of the property.
So
As far as,
no courts that have balls.
you
Like
could.
no basketball, no pickleball, no tennis.
You could add that, but I think.
Well, I mean, it
when we're
says it
talking,
in the PD. I mean, I'm not really making a joke.
Yes.
Well, but I was
No.
still concerned too,
That's a
because you said
use.
that you were gonna,
Yeah.
that little,
Yeah.
panhandle,
So we-
that you were gonna asphalt that, which people were gonna bounce balls. No? You didn't say that? That you were gonna asphalt that? Okay.
No, the only
So
way
I was
that
like,
that would
people are
be
gonna bounce
paved
balls
is if
that's
it became an
asphalt.
access road required by fire.
Okay.
so as of right now, the PUD language reads that no pickleball will be in that. That's the only thing that's prohibited
So we
is
need to
pickleball.
change that.
And so, just to clarify, so when we came, to the planning commission, we didn't, the pickleball issue came up, obviously.
I think we all watched the video.
Yeah, okay, good.
Yeah.
And so they approved, contingent on us making that amendment, so that allowed us to then move forward in the process, again, to here. And if it's something where it's like approval with amended, no racquetball sports, then, moving beyond that, correct, Amanda, is how
Yeah,
they
so-
can do approval upon.
Right, so you could make a recommendation if you wanted to further limit, right now, the PUD language says no pickleball. If you wanted to say no
No
sports
recreational.
involving a ball, or however you want to do that language, you could do
How about no
that.
recreational area there?
It defi-
Anytime, 'cause
we don't
basketball
have
would be
a,
noisy.
Definition.
yeah, we don't have a definition of what you would, I mean, you could consider a walking trail recreation. Is that something you want to prohibit?
Passive or active recreation.
So you would have to work on the wording of that. But back to what you were saying about the plating, like the street layout, the layout of the project could change a little bit. This is the conceptual drawing, this is what they want. But when we get into the engineering, if the roads don't work out quite right or the measurements don't work out quite right, the topography changes, drainage, all of those things come into play. This is a conceptual rendering. Once we get down into the nitty-gritty details, you could see a little slight changes in like where the roads are or how the curves lay out. So the end product is more than likely not going to be exactly what you see on the screen.
So at this point, they can't really say exactly where the roads are
Right,
gonna be.
but that plat
'cause they
would
haven't
come
done
back
the
before
next
you.
phase yet.
Yeah, the plat would come back, yeah.
So
have
instead
to
of
get through
pickleball,
here.
can we just say, I think this is what John suggested, is nothing with rackets? Is that what you wanted, John?
Yeah,
No,
but they had
we
also
don't
mentioned
want
basketball.
Basketball either.
And
Yeah.
we could do basketball and racquetball sports, is like, that's what the contingent is.
I think you guys
that's our
are-
intention, the language is.
Yeah, you
what
guys
we
are
need to-
okay with not doing, having
Yeah.
sports-related things in that area, is my understanding, yeah.
Yeah.
When I think someone made you a good offer on that land. I didn't hear a price, but she said that she,
We didn't hear a price either.
okay. You may talk to him afterwards. You can-
For the record.
Okay.
So I'm good with what Johnny said of waiting a few weeks, but whatever y'all.
But,
I'll
I
let
mean,
y'all.
even if we wait a few weeks, they're not gonna have a final on where the roads are gonna be,
Yeah,
because
that
that's
will
not
not-
till the
I'm
next
more
phase.
That's not what we're
concerned-
doing
I'm more
tonight.
concerned
But he's
about,
gonna
okay, well,
know
y'all go
about
for
how
it.
much it's gonna cost him,
Do your
because the
thing.
city manager is gonna
But
tell
that's
him.
I'm just saying what
I've
I'm
also
good
We're
with.
doing tonight.
I realize that.
I've also stated, though, that regardless of if the city wants to partner with us on this or not, the project will move forward.
See, I
So
do-
if you get zero incentives, the project will move forward.
It may look different, but.
It might look different, but the project will still move forward. We would love nothing more than to partner with the city. I think it'll be a better finished product, and I think it will benefit the city more if we work together towards a common goal.
I do too.
But it's not gonna
I do
stop us
too.
from doing the project.
Are we gonna say something?
I was just gonna say is that I do think that the possibility of a public-private partnership has, I would say, thrown a wrench into what would normally would just be the approval consideration of a residential development application. And so the developers indicated that he's going forward in some respect without them. So I'm comfortable now that we've got time to look at what we need to do and come back with a recommendation. So then now council can focus on, with the conditions you've mentioned, can now act upon what's on the agenda.
Okay, because, I mean, I think that's the thing, is normally when we're doing something, a project that the city is looking at doing, possible incentives, we hear about it, we do it in executive session, like, and we talk about it way ahead of time, and so we are talking about things long before they're at the stage. So I think that is my issue, is that I would be voting to approve something that I'm not really sure, like, okay, what's going to be the ask after we approve this? That, I think that's, and it's just not a normal process of how we do things.
But we still get to vote on that ask in later phases.
Yeah,
So
I know,
it's not like
but
we don't
it's
have a
just,
say
it's
in that
just,
still.
I know, but it's still, I mean, I get to.
It's just different and it's change.
Yeah.
And we're
It's
all the
not,
first
well,
to
it's not
change,
change,
but-
it's just, I like to know where I'm spending my money before I approve this, like.
That money could be
Like,
zero.
I might
though.
not, I
There
might not.
There might not be
Zero.
any
Could be
money
$0
spent.
I know.
that we would be
It
spending.
could be,
so.
yeah, it could be,
Well, and it's not,
That'd
it's
be
the
awesome.
citizens' money.
so, that's right.
Okay.
Okay.
Any further questions or discussion? Anything else you'd want to add?
I have nothing else. This horse has been beaten.
Yes, it has.
Setting the incentives aside, based on staff's recommendation, and your conditions, I would recommend council consider the application, keep them separate, because I do think it's a unique project. It would be good for our community with those conditions. And being a PUD, it's always mentioned, it gives the city a lot more ability to make a final decision what's going to be there.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
So I will, based on our conversation, do I need to make this motion with the amendment in it about the sports?
Councilor Green, I'd recommend that you do that for clarification for the record so the applicant knows exactly what the requirement is. So the more specificity you have of what you're requiring, the better.
Okay, okay. Or do you want to do this since you come up with the language?
Me?
You had the language of.
I had John's language. It was John's language. But
No,
except
but
for
it's-
that didn't include basketballs, and I think he
So
doesn't
we're
want
gonna
basketballs
do
there either. So let's
anything
maybe
with the ball.
recreation, anything with the
No.
ball, no balls.
They can't do recreation.
Yeah.
They can't.
So I'll make a motion for the approval of BAZ 0016224-204 rezoning and PUD 0011623-204 with the amendment to having no recreational sports, be it those with rackets or balls, in that particular portion of the property.
Does that cover it?
Sorry, it's identified as development area B, if that helps.
Identify as development area B as in Baker.
I'll second that.
Okay. We have a motion and second. Roll call?
Green,
Yes.
Ford,
Yes?
Parks,
Yes.
Gillespie,
Because of the reasons that I so long-windedly talked about, I'm going to vote no.
Wimpy.
Yes. All right. Item 9G, consideration, discussion, and possible action regarding BAZ 1334 rezoning and SP 1335 specific use permit for floral garden expansion, 27 acres, Amanda.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council, Mr. Spurgeon. Staff is recommending that we continue this item to the next meeting, September 17th, in order to get more information for you at that time.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
I do have one point I'd like to make, is that a couple council members have requested an update on the status of the right-of-way, and I'll have Mr. Schwab put something together that updates everyone on that.
Okay.
We do have a motion and a second.
Oh, yes. Roll call. Sorry.
Well, no, I thought Lisa maybe was just confirming.
I was
so-
just waiting.
Yeah.
Green,
Yes.
Ford,
Yes.
Parks,
Yes.
Gillespie.
Yes.
Wimpy.
Yes. We have no preview ordinances, no ordinances, remarks and inquiries by governing body members.
I think We've talked a lot of words tonight.
I will just say, in September, we've got a lot of really cool events happening. We've got Scott's Fest in 2 weeks. We've got the Chalk It Up Festival, Hops and Bops. We've got all kinds of fun stuff going on in September. So if you can't find something fun to do in our city, we got a lot. So,
Always fun.
City Manager?
No comments, ma'am.
Oh, gosh, okay.
Lots of words so far.
Lots of words.
I move to take a short recess to go into Bama and Beta.
Second?
Sorry. So we have a motion and a second. Roll call?
Green,
Yes.
Ford,
Yes?
Parks.
Yes.
Gillespie,
Yes.
Wimpy.
Yes. Call the Broken Arrow Municipal Authority meeting to order. Roll call?
Green,
Not a
Here.
recess.
Ford,
Here?
Parks,
Yes.
Gillespie,
Yes.
Wimpy.
Yes.
Here. Was that the
Here.
roll call?
Oh.
Oh,
Yeah.
here. Sorry, I was following
Yes, you're
everyone's
here.
lead.
I said yes also.
Yes, I'm here. Are there any items from the consent agenda to be removed?
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Roll call?
Sorry. Green,
Yes.
Ford,
Yes?
Parks,
Yes.
Gillespie,
Yes.
Wimpy.
Yes. There are no public hearings, appeals, presentation, recognitions, or awards. In general authority business, we have 6A, consideration, discussion, and possible approval of an authorization to execute purchase of 12 Peterbilt, or 2025 Peterbilt, Peterbilts with automated side loaders. Sorry. Ryan and Jerry.
Good
Please
evening, Madam
approach
Chair,
us.
Vice Chair, Authority, General Manager, Mr. Spurgeon. I am super excited to be here this evening to talk about trash, along with our Director of Solid Waste and Recycling, Mr.
Little
Schuber.
less super excited,
Super
but
excited.
still
Both
very
super
energetic.
excited this evening. So this is something that just brings us great joy to come talk to you this evening about. And I'm going to let Jerry kick it off, and then we're gonna tag team this one a little bit for you. About
Talk trash
25
to us.
minutes.
Okay.
Yeah,
What?
25, 30 minutes, no big deal, right? I think it's called solid waste, not trash.
Oh, are you sure?
Solid
Okay.
waste and recycling.
That's okay. I'm
Sorry.
a trashy guy. I'll take it no matter what. So what we're putting before you today is the 2025 Peterbilt chassis with Heil Python automated side loaders. These are replacements for our older fleet, which has exceeded its life expectancy. These are currently what we're using now in the fleet for our recycling. So,
Okay.
yeah. Sorry, I've got the button.
You're right.
So I'm going to let Ryan speak to this because he really did a remarkable job with these folks. Back one.
I'm just so excited to get to visit with you this evening about this.
Back one.
So today, our fleet maintenance has about 1,950 vehicles they're responsible for. So out of those, about 1,000 are rolling stock. So tractors, loaders, trash trucks. Trash trucks there's 40 of them. So it's 4% of our rolling fleet, or 4% of the fleet that goes out on the street every day. And out of that 4%, fleet spends 40% of their time repairing it, trying to keep that up. In fact, Jerry will tell you, we have meetings Friday. We call it Trash Truck Friday because that's what fleet works on. I'd love to take you on a tour of the fleet building on Friday, the aroma. I mean, it's just a great place to come work. So given that, moving forward to the automated side loaders, it's going to have some significant reduction in wear and tear on those vehicles. But a big piece of it is we're hoping to reduce that number from 40% of our time, an all-day Friday, to going down. Now, some of the ways we're doing that is Jerry and I, along with a lot of the staff, worked on putting together a proposal that had warranties. I know we've talked about warranties before, but the trucks, the bodies themselves, come with a 3-year, 6,000-hour warranty. In 3 years, we aren't going to touch 6,000 hours. We watch those hours pretty closely on these. We know, roughly we're putting 40 hours to 60 hours a week on them. We can do the math. It's just terrific to have 3 years that we know we're going to be fully covered on that. Well, so these Peterbilts, besides the powertrain, the transmissions are Allison's, and they're giving us a 3-year unlimited mileage warranty. Most of our large trucks have the Allison. It's very proven for us. We trust that transmission to hold us way past the 3 years on that. But they also included a 3-year, $300,000 on the engine, the rest of the powertrain that goes with it, and the after treatment. That's the DEF system. We probably have more issues with DEF than we probably even do engines. The DEF for that after treatment to meet the emission standard today, they also included that. So the trucks going forward, not only is it going to lighten the load on the fleet by having a new equipment in and allow us to get rid of some of the older fleet, send it over to auction, but it's also going to help by this being covered by warranty. So if we do have an issue, River City's right here just off of Garnett, they put in a facility for us. Well, not for us, but they put in a facility there. Rush Truck Center handles Peterbilt. We have a great relationship with them. We have for years, way before my time. They provide excellent customer service for Broken Arrow. And so that partnership there with those two has been proven, and we feel really good about it.
So currently what we're dealing with is when we started this process, it was because of the forward thinking of this body and the focus group that came and said, we want to do things different. We want a recycling program. We want to be able to provide services faster, better, and at a clip. And so when we look at what we do now, we're currently picking up about 800 stops per route with one driver and 2 helpers. That's 3 people. When we move to this automated side loader fleet, we're going to be able to pick up 1,500 stops with 1 driver. It changes the dynamic dramatically. We're able to pick up almost twice the stops for a third of the staff. With the ASLs, we have significantly less issues related to staffing in the field. It enhances our performance. It improves our safety. Our staff isn't running around in the snow and in the heat because they're inside a cab. It makes it safer for us to be out there, not being behind a vehicle. It also creates new career paths for the people who've been doing this for a long time as the helpers, because we've been sending them over to Tulsa Tech to get licenses. So we've already done 5. We have 3 in the wait to go to the next class. We've been trying to move these folks along to get them through the process. And we haven't been hiring helpers. We've been using some temporary labor until such time as we move this direction, so that we don't have to RIF any of the staff. We don't have a reduction in force because we can move it forward this way. And then the city can fully utilize the cart inventory we purchased. We purchased an asset that we haven't gotten the full extent of. And then on top of it, it gives us opportunities for better recycling and recovery of the materials that are already on the street. And we've made huge strides in that area, but this is going to help us get to where we got to go. So, and I believe that's it.
Oh.
So we tried to do this relatively quick because we knew it was going to be a long night. So any questions or comments, concerns, or anything we can answer, we'd love to.
I have a couple questions. I'm excited about this $5 million expenditure here. And it looks like it comes with everything, and Councilor Green will be glad to know it also comes with a 20-pound fire extinguisher with a bracket on every one of these. But it looks like it comes with everything.
Shots fired.
Yeah. It comes with everything, but actually our city logo on the side panels, it looks like to me. It comes with everything.
The only thing that is not on these vehicles when we receive them is the routeware software hardware that we put on the truck so we can take pictures and monitor our customer contacts.
So are we going to buy brand new of those too?
We
or are
will
taking old?
trade in what we have and purchase new, because the equipment that's on the older trucks, along with the older trucks, is now outdated and they're no longer supporting it. So we'll get rid of that, we'll bring in the new equipment, and we'll have new from the start.
And we saw how long it's taking for us to get a fire truck. So how long is it going to really take for us to get these?
This is super excited right
here. Super excited. So, I mean, that was a big question that the leadership was asking us as we were working on this. We're told 6 trucks before the end of the year.
Oh, okay.
So out of what this request is, 6 would be before the end of the year, and the rest of them by May of the following year. So less than a year turnaround for that. It was really the chassis are the difficult part.
This is one of the reasons that we spend so much time fostering relationships with these companies that purchase this or build this equipment for us. Ryan and I have spent the last 3 years building relationships with Rush Truck and some of the other companies that do this, and those relationships have now become kind of solvent in how we're going to be able to provide equipment to the city, because they're saying, hey, we want Broken Arrow's business and we want to do what we can to give you the equipment you need. We're going to put that stock aside for you.
What I'm hearing you say is Chief Moore needs to work on his relationships.
I don't know about Chief Moore.
I mean, no, he's in here.
He was a minute ago.
If you'd like,
I'm just messing with him, but, you know.
Yeah. Our goal is to make sure we have the right equipment for the people who are out there doing the services, and our customers are served at the maximum level we can service them.
I do have a couple questions as well. I think you've already addressed one, and that my first one was going to be what's happening with our employees going from 3 to a truck to 1 to a truck, because obviously we value our employees. We don't want to be cutting people out of jobs here. So I do.
That was a critical piece for me as well, and I have been part of an operation where we had to reduce a force of 64 people in 1 year. I don't ever want to do that again.
Right.
And as far as I'm concerned, if I can find a way to maneuver us in a way that will keep us from ever having to reduce our force by giving them training or finding other positions, and that's what we try to do. And, you know, we do job searches for things like that in a larger operation. This isn't that large. So as we started reducing force because people left, they either got their driver's license or we just didn't rehire. We didn't fill those spots because we used temporary labor, so that when we made an adjustment, we weren't going to have to try to find spots for those folks.
And I appreciate that, and I'm sure they do too. So
I'm
thanks
sure
for
they
taking
will.
the extra effort to do that.
And it's career growth for them as
Right.
well. It gives them the next step in their career path.
Right.
So we worked with HR on that as well, so that they know, you know, where we were headed.
Good. Well, we appreciate that. And my second question was going to be, obviously going to these trucks where basically the claw will be loading the solid waste and recycling. What I know you have a plan, but just for clarification for those who may go back and watch this later or those listening in the room, what's the plan for oversized items or stuff that won't fit in the barrel? How's that going to work as far as additional routes, additional days, et cetera? Because there's still going to be things that need to be picked up that the claw is not going to pick up.
That's correct. And ultimately, what we've tried to do is beef up our bulky routes so that we can have that material move towards bulkies instead of the automated side loader. The automated side loader is really for containers. So we've been moving slowly and surely away from extra material outside of the cart because it is time consuming, and that's where we have the biggest risk of people being in and out of the vehicle. So it's not a 1,500 stop per route when you're in and out of the truck all the time.
To his point, you're not going to ever know whenever there's extra trash bags that are set out there. So
Eventually, we will have to get to a point where we say, we just can't do trash bags.
Do you do that now part of the time?
What we've done is the trash bags have become kind of price inhibitive. So it's $5 for a bag to dump an extra bag, but it's $7.50 for an extra container. So now what we've done is we've essentially made 2 bags worth the same price as a container that'll hold 19 of them, right? So the smart thing is just get a second container, and then the rate is cheaper, and we can service it with the arm.
Right.
So
So
we've
what
been
about green waste?
organically moving people that direction. Green waste is our next hurdle to cross, and that we'll have to retain some rear load trucks for green waste only for a little while until we can come up with another solution.
So what will Fridays be now at the fleet department?
They could be fire truck day. I tell you, I mean, those guys do a great job. They work a lot of overtime to make sure Broken Arrow's taken care of. I don't think they would mind if we were able to catch up a little bit and get more into the preventative maintenance side and less out of the reactive side.
Yeah, we're pretty excited about that.
We're excited too.
Yes. Super excited.
Very
Thank
excited.
you.
This is big. Appreciate it.
All right.
Spurgeon.
Yes, sir.
So how many, advise the authority, how many side loaders do we have now, Jerry?
We currently have 11 side loaders. We had 3 when I first arrived. We purchased another 5 shortly after I got here so that we could finish our recycling routes, and then we purchased another 3 after that. But the way that our fleet is aging, we'll never get to a place where we can do a complete catch-up unless we do something pretty dramatic, and that's what this is.
How many total routes do we have?
Currently, we have 11 trash routes, we have 7 recycling routes, and then we have a bulk truck. Eventually, we'll probably be running, we have 2 bulk trucks, but we'll probably end up running both of them.
I've looked at this and I'd recommend to the authority approval.
All right. I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion in 2
That's pausing.
seconds. Roll call.
Green,
Yes.
Ford,
Yes.
Parks.
Yes.
Gillespie.
Yes.
Wimpy.
Yes. Item 6B, consideration, discussion, and possible approval of and authorization to execute long-term strategic plan for Adams Creek Sewer Shed Basin. Charlie. And Emily.
7 seconds.
You know, with my personality type, I can't really match that excitement. It's just-
You can try, Charlie, you can try.
Yeah, I'll work on that.
This is him trying.
This is me trying.
Maybe if you shaved your head.
Yeah, well, less hair, that'll work. So, well, good
It's all
evening,
right.
Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, trustees, and General Manager. Charlie Bright, the Director of Engineering and Construction. It's kind of gone full circle tonight. We've talked about stormwater, we've talked about solid waste, and now we're going to talk about water and wastewater. So we're hitting all of our utilities tonight. You know, make sure we got it covered. This first discussion, you know, we've had with you guys a couple of times, and then the following item is going to be about water. So we're going to talk about wastewater and then talk about water. And really tonight is for the purpose of, you know, being transparent and really telling the public what's going on. I think we mentioned to you guys before, it's important to know that, you know, we have the capacity, we can handle our wastewater today. We have the capacity, we can handle our raw water today. But the stuff that we're talking about is planning for the future. It's not very often that a council makes a lot of decisions that everything that's enacted on it is probably going to be well after this council is here and we have a new council. And that's what we're talking about tonight. I think it's important and it's transparent for the public to understand the cost and the vision of what we're talking about, because that's what affects the rates and the stuff that they talk about on, you'll see on the Facebook comments and everything else. Why are my rates so high? Well, the ability to handle the wastewater and to access raw water for our drinking water, I mean, it's got an expense to it. And really that's what we're going to talk about, is the vision of what we're going to do in the future and what those expenses look like. So I'm going to pass it off to Emily Rowland, our Environmental Division Manager, and let her take you through it.
And I'm sure she's super excited about this.
I am very excited about this. A big project we've been working on for a while, so I'm excited to get in front of you guys. So good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, trustees, and General Manager. So I have a presentation that will look pretty familiar to you guys, but we'll go ahead and go through it and just make sure everyone's on the same page with that. Do you guys have the presentation? Oh, do I just click through it? Okay. So this slide just shows a general timeline of the history of our wastewater system. So when we started as just a lagoon plant back in the 1950s, and it just kind of walks through all of the major improvements we've had with both the Lynn Lane plant and the Hickey Creek plant. And really the big thing on here that I wanted to point out was that you can see every 10 to 15 years is kind of a trigger to making another big decision on whether to upgrade the plant or just what we're going to do with the system as a whole. You know, as population grows, that timeline seems to fit that it's time to make a decision. And the last major upgrade that we had at Lynn Lane was in 2008, so we're kind of in that 10 to 15 year time frame with this to decide what we want to do next with our wastewater. So this slide shows the two major sewer basins that we have. So the one kind of on the left in red or pink is our Hickey Creek Basin, and all of the flow on that side goes to the Hickey Creek plant that we share with City of Tulsa, our RMUA plant. And then the one on the right in the blue is our Lynn Lane Basin. So everything in that basin flows to Lynn Lane's plant, which is just owned by Bama. And you can see kind of the dotted line up on the top a little bit to the right is Green Country Sewer, which is independently owned and operated. And then the big like black outline is our Adams Creek Basin. And so it is currently part of the Lynn Lane Basin, but that's what we're here to talk about because as you can see, all of those green dots are lift stations, which we'll go into an explanation about, but just take a lot of operations and maintenance. And we have a lot of those in that area in the Adams Creek Basin. So the lift stations are just how we get sewage around the plant or around the system. And what separates that basin from the rest of our system is kind of a ridge line that follows kind of Highway 51. And so we have to pump the sewage over that ridge line and use those lift stations to do that. So the next slide just explains how the lift station works. So generally we want it to flow by gravity, but when you have ridge lines like that, you can only go so far down and you hit something and you've got to use a pump to pump the sewage back up and get it either to the plant or back into your gravity system to then flow the rest of the way to the plant. So we have 4 major lift stations. There's kind of a 5th one with a little bit lighter star on it that we use to pump all of the sewage over the ridge and get it into our county line trunk sewer. The lighter color star is our Homeland lift station, and it pretty much just takes flow from where Atwoods is at and that Sonic on county line near 71st or 23rd in Kenosha. And so it doesn't take a lot of the flow, but it does pump over the ridge. And then the other 4 are really major lift stations that some of those other lift stations will pump into. And that's what that basin as a whole has, around 14 or 15 lift stations in it. And our whole Lynn Lane Basin has 25 lift stations in it. So we have a huge percentage of them just in that basin. And all of those flow to one of these 4 or 5 and then pump over the ridge. So our Greens lift station is at 23rd between Albany and Omaha, which is kind of is right by the Greens golf course. And then the Homeland lift station by Atwoods. Our Adams Creek Northwest lift station is on 37th Street or 209th between Albany and Omaha, which is by Preserve Park. And then the 209th Street lift station is on Kenosha, just north of the Turnpike, near Tractor Supply, and it's kind of off to the side over there. And then our Old Adams Creek lift station is on Oneida Road, just north of Kenosha. So it's the one that has a big basin that's currently under construction on it. So that brings us to what our 2 options are for this. We've kind of boiled down. Our consultant gave us a lot of different scenarios, and really they ultimately boil down to, do we want to continue to take the flow south to Lynn Lane, which is what we've been doing, or do we want to look at building a new plant in the Adams Creek Basin, which both options have some pros and cons to them, and we will go a little bit into more of those. So the first scenario is the status quo alternative, so just continuing to take everything to Lynn Lane. The nice thing with that is that's what we've been planning for since our last master plan update that we had in 2018, and so all of our projects have been headed in that direction. Some of the issues with that is that we do still have issues in our Adams Creek Basin. We have a consent order from the DEQ that we're trying to get into compliance with because of some overflows on the stations out there. And we would still have to address those regardless of if we continue to send everything to Lynn Lane. We also have our lower county line interceptor that was constructed a couple of years ago. We spent $25 million on, possibly more than that, somewhere in that ballpark. And we would in the future either have to upsize that or add a parallel line to that to meet demands as the city grows. And then we also would need additional upgrades to Lynn Lane just as capacity, or we would need additional capacity as growth increases. So we would have to add additional clarifiers, increase the capacity at our headworks, all of that. So those are capital costs that we would have to take into consideration. So in 2023 dollars, and this is out over about a 25-year horizon, we're estimating that those infrastructure and, well, system infrastructure and plant infrastructure upgrades would be around $270 to $290 million just for continuing with the status quo option. So then scenario 2 looks at building a new plant in the Adams Creek Basin. And this option does a good job of leveraging our current investments on county line trunk sewer, our Greens lift station that we just redid, and some Wagner County trunk sewer. Some of that stuff gets us some use out of that, and we aren't immediately getting rid of that and doing something else with it. And then it gives us some flexibility with the timing of it, where we can make this decision now, but we don't have to build a plant tomorrow. We could build it 5 years from now, 10 years from now, or phase it over the full 25-year horizon that we're looking at. There wouldn't be any significant upgrades needed at Lynn Lane. It should have adequate capacity. It's at around 8 million gallons a day is what we're permitted at, and based on our projections, that should continue to be adequate if we do an Adams Creek plant. And it also allows some water reuse benefits, because the Adams Creek plant would discharge into Adams Creek, which would be upstream of our oxbow. And so we would get some of the benefit of having that water help blow into that. So some of the cons with that is that, again, depending on the timeline, it could be a shorter timeline that we would have to have that investment in, but there are phases, a phased approach that we can do to get that plant going. So again, it's not money that we would have to spend tomorrow. We could look at that over the full horizon. It would require additional staffing, operations and maintenance, dealing with a new plant, but this plant would get rid of a lot of our lift stations, and so you kind of balance out those costs with plant costs, but less operations and maintenance spread across 15 different lift stations in that area. And then you do have the con of the public perception of reuse with discharging the effluent from this upstream of our water plant.
Can I ask you a question about it real quick? So when you say estimated cost, does that include the operations costs of additional staff?
The operations costs on the next slide, we have, they're estimated very similarly. So for the scenario one option, it's around $1.9 million a year, and that's with keeping everything at Lynn Lane. And then for scenario two, with doing the new plant, is around $2 million a year. And that's what, in talking to our consultant, our understanding and what they explained is that it's pretty much just based on the amount of flow that you have. And so you're going to have to treat the same 12 plus million gallons a day. It just is either in one location or two, but you've got to treat it the same way. So with that, on this slide, it shows that those costs are pretty similar, and then the overall cost over the 25-year horizon out to 2050, scenario one is around $281 million, and on scenario two, it's showing $278 million. So they're pretty similar costs when you're looking out that far, and operations and maintenance costs are pretty similar. So with that, we have, if you guys have any questions, we can answer those. We do have Mary Elizabeth Mock, who was our consultant from Garber. She was our team lead, and we have some of her team here if you have any questions. And staff's recommendation with this is to go with scenario two, just because of the flexibility it gives us in the future with having that second plant.
I don't have any questions. We've looked at this, you know what I mean, several times. You've done a good job on it. I'm not reluctant at all in agreeing with the recommendation. I just hate lift plants, and it's not that I like sewers and talking about it, but I've done it my whole life. So it costs a fortune just to lift lifting the sewer out to another level to take it out. So those costs in itself are pretty bad. To me, what's the best thing in this is Wagner County, is our citizens that live in Wagner County. This will certainly make for a better opportunity for them to get on a sewer system. Those additions out there that are built underneath the flag of the city of Broken Arrow should be tying on to one of our sewer systems. Now, the aerobic, septic tanks have a life to them. The old septic tanks, the older subdivisions out there, their life is done gone, as far as their septic tank. And the ground, they're coming up to the top of the ground, to going a little bit into the creeks, some places. The new systems, this health department says they work really well, but you can only spray so much sewer water for so many years on your yard. So I think it's going to help the long-term livability in Wagner County. So I think it's very beneficial. Economically, it's better than going back and pumping it all over. We see what happened when we pumped a lot of sewer into that sewer system. We had to replace so many miles of it because the acid or whatever it was in there ate the pipe up, ate the lining of the pipe up. So I think it prolongs, as you say, it prolongs the life of even the sewer system in the South Broken area. So I'm very much in favor of it. And speaking historically, somewhere you got to start spending those millions of dollars to get something done. If you keep putting it off, then you just don't find the end for a long time. So to find the end or work toward it, you need to go ahead and start. So you need to be proud of yourselves as a council to know that you have made the decision to go ahead and start with the sewer system to help our broken area in Wagner County.
Yeah, we've got a lot of growth coming out our way, so.
Exactly.
Well, and I think I mentioned, you're more of an expert than any of the rest of us are on sewer systems.
On those sewers, yes.
Yeah, so we appreciate all the work you've done on this and educating us and the public, and then we want to go with your recommendation. And I mean, and they're basically equal, you know, so.
I think Mr. Spurgeon has some comments.
I just wanted to recommend the building of a new plan, and as was mentioned, to get started. And when you look at the four corners of the foundation of your community, it's real simple. You have water, sanitary sewer, stormwater, and you have roads. And with approval tonight, and we're taking another step in the next agenda item potentially, is council now has addressed long-range planning for the foundation in which our community is built. Obviously, we're going to need voter support for streets, but we do have a plan. But you look at this one of the major areas of improvement to say that we've now put in motion for the next two to basically 5 decades. You don't get that opportunity very often, and I would recommend approval of the recommendation from staff.
And it will help you make your decisions. If you do have a pump goes down or something, you know what I mean? If you can get by for a few years until you can get on the system, then you're not wasting that money. I would make that motion, and you did a great job in your presentation.
Thank you.
I kept waiting for you to make a mistake, and I was going to write it down. But you didn't make any, so you did a very good job. I make a motion that we authorize execution of a long-term plan for Adams Creek sewer shed basin.
Second.
Option 2.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call?
Green,
Yes.
Ford,
Yes.
Parks,
Yes.
Gillespie,
Yes.
Wimpy.
Yes. Thank you, ma'am. Good
Thank
job.
you.
Thank you.
Oh, I guess you have another one.
I do.
Yes. Item 6C, consideration, discussion, and possible approval of a memorandum of understanding between Broken Arrow Municipal Authority and Mid-America Industrial Park. I'm excited about this one, by the way.
Yes. Well, good evening, Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, trustees, General Manager, Emily Rowland, Environmental Division Manager. This is another project that we've been working on for quite a while and are really excited to have before you guys. So we, in 2022, you guys approved an agreement with our consultant HDR to look more at a long-range water supply plan. They'd done one previously that had looked at a couple of different options for it and had kind of narrowed it down to just looking at the Grand River as an option. And so they dialed into that and looked more in depth at how we could utilize our existing line that we had coming from prior and the best option to get water from the Grand River. And their recommendation, which we went over with you guys in November of last year, was to partner with Mid-America Industrial Park to work with them to utilize some of their water rights that they weren't using right now and partner with them to get the lines through their property into our existing system. And so this is kind of setting the framework for all of that. We've been working with them since November to get a memorandum of understanding together, which will lay the framework for a future agreement with them to get this project going and start getting things in place to get a secondary water source from the verdigris.
Yeah. And historically
Super
speaking,
excited about
yeah,
this.
Historically speaking, we've done this in the past. So I know I ran into one of the board members years ago, and he was like, "They want to talk to you guys about doing this," and so that, I mean, that was good to hear, and that the fact that we've been working on this for a while, so, and you know the history of all that.
This is the second time that I'll vote on this. One was like 35 years ago.
Yes.
And it worked very well. We had good water. But our pipe just didn't last. And I know exactly how much it cost. It cost $16 million for us to build the water line from our plant out here to Mid-America. Had to cross underneath the Verdigris River and go up, and half of that line stayed in good shape. But I think the other half, from what Kenny tells me, it went bad. So that's why I got on the council again, is when you went back on the Verdigris. I think what the Grand River is going to mean for us is we don't have to spend as much money. We've got a state-of-the-art plant, water plant out there, and we won't have to spend as much money on purifying the water coming out of the Grand River that comes out of the Verdigris. And I think that will certainly work to our benefit. And I think our water taste will probably be the same because we provide good water now. It just, I think it'll be at a reduced cost, even though it's going to cost us some to build the line to go through there. Do you have something, Kenny?
If I may, Madam Chair. I just want to say for the record that Mid-America UWA has been wonderful to work with through this process. And for me personally, I felt like the game changer is when we discussed with them the potential of buying they have a tank there. I think it's a 3 million gallon tank in the hill. That was a game changer for us because that allows us to actually gravity quite a bit. And when they were open to that consideration, which is in the MOU, that really changed the whole thing, really makes this much more affordable and reasonable for us. So I just wanted to say thank you to them.
And I might add too that we bought water from them. We bought treated water. Yes. So, and this makes a big difference buying raw water because we can utilize our plant. But we had to inject chlorine in it every so many miles to keep it still drinkable. So we paid them for our drinking water, and it was already, you know what I mean, sanitized and whatever they do to it and chlorinated. But this, we're going to be buying raw water. So that's great. We can put it in our lakes and let them set it out. And so I'm really pleased with that. So this was a good decision. 2 decisions that you've made is really good.
Well, thank you. I've had a little bit of help with literally everybody else, but I just get to be up here for it.
I'll keep my comments brief because I've spoken a lot tonight and been called out a lot tonight. However, I'll say both of these 2 things that we're just voting on are of high importance to our citizens, because a lot of times I think we all take for granted that when we get up in the morning and turn that spigot, we're going to get water, and when we flush that toilet, it's going to go somewhere, and we do this without thinking about it. But it's important that we have people who are thinking about this and the future of our community. So thank you all for your time and diligence and commitment to this. That way our citizens can continue to not think about these things going forward.
I'm being optimistic. I think our water is going to taste better once we start getting it out of Grant. I'm just claiming it right now.
Speak it.
Yes.
Yep. All right. If there's no further discussion, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve and authorize a memorandum of understanding between Broken Arrow Municipal Authority and Mid-American Industrial Park.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Green,
Yes.
Ford,
Yes.
Parks,
Yes.
Gillespie,
Yes.
Wimpy.
Yes.
We also, I did forget to say, sorry, but we have some people from Mid-America here that we're here to
Thank you all.
Would you like to
sit through all of this and be happy with us about it.
Thanks for coming.
Yes.
And,
We'd let you
and,
speak.
We would let you
we're
speak, but
tired.
it's really late.
and enduring the meeting.
All right. Any remarks by governing body members? City manager.
Having that second source of water is extremely important, and I appreciate staff's efforts staying on this tenacity, and partnering with Mid-America is a big deal. So thank you very much.
All right. We have no executive session.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Green,
Yes.
Ford,
Yes.
Parks,
Yes.
Gillespie,
Yes.
Wimpy.
Yes. Call the Broken Arrow Economic Development Authority to order.
Green,
Here.
Ford,
Here?
Parks.
Here.
Gillespie.
Here.
Wimpy.
Here. Are there any items to be removed from the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion that we can approve the consent agenda as it stands.
Second?
I have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Green,
Yes.
Ford,
Yes.
Parks.
Yes.
Gillespie,
Yes.
Wimpy.
Yes. There are no public hearings, appeals, presentation, recognitions, or awards. There are no general authority business. Remarks from governing body members? City manager?
No, ma'am.
There is no executive session.
Motion to adjourn. Second?
Okay, who made the motion? I'm sorry.
Lisa.
Please pick one.
Okay. And the second?
I'll second.
Okay, Gillespie. All right.
Roll
Green,
Yes.
Ford,
Yes.
Parks.
Yes.
Gillespie
Yes.
and Wimpy.
Yes. Entertain a motion to take a brief recess to go into executive session.
So moved?
Second?
Roll call.
Green,
Yes.
Ford.
Yes.
Parks.
Yes.
Gillespie
Yes.
and Wimpy.
Yes.
Oh, my.